All right. And we're back for our year end of 2024 episode of the Remote Play Gaming Podcast. We just had some, I just got some games for Christmas. My kids just got some games for Christmas. Mark, did you get any games for Christmas?
I did. I got some games before Christmas because the
Yep.
deals were going and it's hard to ship them out here. We got games for Christmas and also for the fam. So yeah, Santa was really nice for us.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I'm still, I've got a list of, some of these sales go through the turn of the year here. So I've got a list of Steam games, a list of Switch games, that I'm kind of picking through to see what I want to pick up before the sales end. Um, but I guess we'll kick off kind of what we got, what we've been playing a little bit. So so we'll ask, I guess, what were a couple of your pickups, or what did you get for Christmas?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the family got um, Super Mario Party Jamboree. We haven't cracked that open yet to play, and Super Mario 3D World, which we did crack open. We all played together, which was like a blast. The kids were loving running around. Immediately, the first power up you get's the cat power up, right? So they love that. They recognize it from the movie, and so you got all that. So we played 4 or 5 levels together. My son lost a little bit of interest, which was weird because he loves Astrobot, and I think to him it was just it's not exactly Astrobot, and he's got to kind of follow along with the group instead of doing his own thing. But yeah, those were a couple of the initial pickups. I got the Metal Gear Solid collection as like an early Christmas gift off of a sale, as well as Armored Core 6. So both of those discs are in the consoles waiting for me to play them. How about you? What else? What did you
Awesome.
pull in?
Yeah, real quick on the Super Mario 3D World. So that was a game that was like, oh, I was excited to play with the family and stuff, and like, it didn't land with me, and it gets a lot of praise, right? So I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned like, your son not really like, getting into it because he has to stay with the group and stuff, and I was like, I wonder if that's kind of what it is for me, because it's kind of the same thing for new Super Mario, the whole new Super Mario Bro franchise and stuff like that. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of those games where I'm like, oh, we have to stick together, and like you can land on each other and we get in each other's way and stuff like that. And I was like, we end up just getting like those games, like we have a little bit of fun with them, but then they just kind of like we all kind of fall off of them. When I say we all, like it was me, my wife, and my son, all just kind of like lose interest in those relatively quickly. And I wonder if that had
Mm-hmm.
part of it. I don't like the perspective of 3D World personally. Like I have
Mm-hmm.
such a hard time. It's like I'm side scroller, but like also not.
Yeah,
And
and I think that messed with him for sure.
yeah. And so it's like you kind of have manipulation of the camera angle, but like you also don't. And like or
And
whatever.
sometimes it manipulates itself, and you're like,
Right.
"Whoa,
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's like what kind of space am I navigating in here? 3D or 2D? And yeah, so
yeah."
and it is 3D, but like a 2D perspective. I don't that didn't resonate super well with me. I played through a good little bit of the game, like a world or two,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe I'll visit again. Sorry, that is just a
No,
little.
that's fine. We
um,
actually we beat it when it first came out. So I've never played the Bowser's Fury like add-on stuff, but when this first came out, I played it with my wife and my 2 brother-in-laws, and we crushed through the game and had a blast. Like it was
yeah,
hilarious, right?
yeah. This
So
is on the Wii U, right?
um
That you played this.
yeah,
Yeah.
way back, right? So that was a blast and one of the only good games on the Wii U, kind of. I don't know. Some people might have something else to say about that, but there wasn't a lot. But yeah, anyway, so I got some other games I got, but what else did you get?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I got a couple of pickups. I think I've mentioned Sea of Stars, but I got Prince of Persia, the Lost
Mm.
Crown. So yeah, my wife got me that. That was pretty exciting. A game that kind of flew under the radar last year, for that was really critically acclaimed. I think relatively to how good of a game it is, and the franchise that it's in, right? Prince of Persia is pretty well-known franchise and
Yeah.
underperformed, but I got my kids got two. We got Mario versus Donkey Kong, and Mario Rabbids, the Sparks of Hope, right? The second one,
Oh,
Mario
nice.
Rabbids
Yep.
game. And then they got 1-2 Switch as well, so you can kind of see those in the background if you're on the video. But um Yeah, 1-2 Switch was definitely a good pickup. My wife and I were talking about games that the kids would get into. My son definitely just loves like the quick draw, and the wizard,
Yeah.
the wand thing and stuff. Just like this back and forth and just a bunch of those little mini games and stuff. Just a good time. He's absolutely. I think Mario versus Donkey Kong is going to be his favorite game ever. He's been playing the crap out of that, and
Mm. The
and
puzzles in that are good.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because like I've talked about how like Crazy Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle is kind of one of my favorite games, right? It's a very similar style game, right? You're kind of it's some platforming but more focused on like the puzzle mechanics, right? And getting to getting the key and unlocking the door. And he has also been playing that some Crazy Castle on his little Miu Mini. And I got my
Nice.
Miu Mini Plus.
That's cool.
So those are some other pickups that we got that we've been playing some fun games on, and I got that all customized for them and set up with cover art.
That's
And
sick.
I narrowed it down to 19 games for them on theirs, because I didn't want to overwhelm them with 20,000 games
With your Steam wish list style, 800
right,
games.
exactly. And I'm like, when they have too many choices, like they just get overwhelmed and paralyzed by that. But yeah, so those are a lot of games that we got, we picked up, and I talked about some of the other pickups that I got. But another big one that one of my co-hosts got me for Christmas, so UFO 50. So thank you so much for that. That was a pleasant surprise. It's a game I've been talking about, anticipating, and wanting to get, and I was just like, oh, I'll pick it up on a good sale at some point. And then I just woke up Christmas morning to that in my Steam inbox, so I was pretty excited, and I dipped into that and excited to play more of that. So speaking of what we've been playing,
I want your review on that before I dive in and bite myself and play it. So I'm interested to see how you get along with it over the coming weeks.
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about what I've been playing, and just kind of start with that, right? So I played. There's 50 games, right? UFO 50. There's 50 like games that are made in this retro style, and I want to say that like they put the limitations. So like when you're selecting what game you want to play, I think you can play any of them or maybe most of them right off the rip, right? You just kind of pick them through this like grid menu, and they have them categorized by year. So I'm wondering if they like took whatever limitations video games had in that year, and like with like, so I started 1982 was at least the first year that like the very first game on that list. And then like I started going through, and it was like 1983, 1984, and there's a handful of games in each of these years. And this 1982 game I was playing, I sent a screenshot of it to Curtis, who just loves low resolution
Retro games.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So no. And it was pretty. Yeah, it felt very much like, okay, this is a game that could have existed in 1982.
Yeah, and this just to comment really quick on your concept of UFO 50. It is like a game jam style. So for those not familiar with a game jam, it's something where it's a game developer or a team of developers. You come in and there's a very restrictive rule set on what you have to do. Like you have 3 days to make a Halloween themed game that is NES style or something. And for this one, I think it's 6 developers, and they over several years did this essentially game jam style challenge where they made these games with certain restrictions. The year must be one of them, as you kind of alluded to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was I started out with that, and it's like this game where you have like 6 lives, and it's funny, whenever you die, you just kind of rehatch it in this egg. And I'm seeing if I can pick up just a screenshot of what it looks like. I'm using Bing search, and that was a mistake because it's yeah. So anyway, it's a pretty cool game. That's the only one I've dipped into. It's a pretty hard game, right? Like games were hard in 1982. And just they had to add artificial difficulty, right, to a lot of games, really until it just progressively got less and less. The difficulty had to be artificially added just to get more length out of the game, right? You could only put so much of a game on a cartridge, so you had to really get the a lot of gameplay, and one way to do that was by
core
just
loop.
making it hard, right? Yeah, extra hard. And so that was so that's one thing I've been playing. And then I
also feel like, really quick, I feel like the part of that spawned from arcades, because games were coming from arcades into the home, and in arcades you had games that were really hard to eat those quarters. So I think that was kind of two things, like the limitation, but also the merging of arcade games into home consoles.
Right. The media that it was on, right, was something that like is just kind of carried over, and it's just like it's kind of like you know, as we transition to like VR, or there was like a transition to mobile games, just trying to figure out like you know, okay, what actually fits best on this hardware, this type of you know, way to play a game, right? And it's just like when you're you know, I think to mobile for maybe not so much our generation, but the younger generation, right? Games that like first person shooters and stuff, where with just the touch controls and stuff has just been easy. But I think you know, the Hoyoverse and stuff has probably done a lot better job at like integrating like, all right, this like touch controls are at the forefront of what the game design, as opposed to like, let's shoehorn this game into touch controls, right? Which is kind of awful at times, but or you get things like, you know, like Pokemon TCG Pocket and stuff, where it's just like, that's just a game that's designed around being on the mobile platform. And yeah, so yeah, I've also been playing Slope Crashers. And
Slope Crashers,
I could not find the screenshot that I sent in our chat for that UFO 50, but it's whatever the 1982 game was. But and Slope Crashers, I think I've talked about it on the show before, but it is a I do actually have a trailer for that right up here. It is a callback to a spiritual. I mean, to me, like it's just like it's just really heavily inspired by Snowboard Kids, right?
Right.
So and I will select a tab to share. So here's the trailer for that, right? So yeah, so it's pretty fun. I've only played dipped a little bit into it, but oh no, it's buffering. But it's very, like I said, it's just like this arcadey snowboarding game where you kind of have silly characters, you're doing all the kinds of these tricks, and it's got a little bit of Mario Kart vibe to it, in terms of maybe I'll just lower the resolution here. But
we're going way down to 240p. Right. Should have asked Santa for
retro games and stuff, right? But here we go, it's working. But yeah, there's a lot of there's customizations, which is a lot of customization, which is I think more modern than something in Snowboard Kids. But very if you ever played Snowboard Kids, actually down to 240p resolution, this kind of looks just like Snowboard Kids did.
Authentic.
It looks it looks a lot better than this on the Steam Deck, I promise. But look up the game. I just wanted something that didn't buffer.
This looks cool though. You can play multiplayer locally, or
yep. And
I feel like my kids would like this.
Yeah, it's honestly it's a really good time. So far, it's I don't know if it's quite got that charm that Snowboard Kids did for me, but you know, that's like a nostalgia thing, and like, you know, just but I've only played like the there's a prologue basically like a training stage or training level or whatever, and because it's like it's separated into kind of like worlds or whatever, like Super Mario World type of deal, right? You beat these races and then move on to the next one, and then beat these within a contained thing. So that is Slope Crashers, and then gosh, I've been playing a bunch of other stuff, but let's bounce back to you. A couple things you've been playing.
Well, first let me run through my other games I bought. I might have bought a lot.
Okay.
So I didn't even cover Steam. So Steam, for the record, if my wife listens to this episode, a lot of these were like $1 or $2 because there was that day where they had a ton of cheap games. So Marvel Rivals free. There we go. Songs of Conquest I bought, which is kind of like a Heroes of Might and Magic type. Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers. That was in a dual pack with Billionaire, which I'll talk about more later. Grim Dawn, which is like a Diablo type. The Forest, Firewatch, Metro Exodus, Warhammer Vermintide 2, Raft, Billionaire I mentioned, Wild Frost. I got a little bit further back, but started playing through it. Luma Island and Clone Drone in the Danger Zone because my son found that on YouTube and really wanted to play it.
Oh, nice.
So that's what I bought. In terms of what I'm playing, maybe I'll talk about Billionaire. So I was recently on vacation in Cairns, which was awesome. We did a Great Barrier Reef and feeding crocodiles and stuff like that, because that's the things you do in Australia. You just feed crocodiles. And in between those sessions and being at the pool, when we were chilling in the room, everybody was getting some screen time, some relaxation and naps. I did a lot of Billionaire. So this is a I don't know if you can pull this up while I'm chatting, maybe.
Okay.
Billionaire is a like a roguelike, think like Balatro or any of those type of Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers or Luck Be a Landlord. This one is a pachinko machine, which sounds weird at first because pachinko machines are very random and a ball just drops down a giant pyramid and you go from there, right? So in Billionaire, though, you get these different pegs that you can put into your pachinko machine. And when your ball hits those, it does things. So you might have one that teleports your ball to a different spot. It might give it wings and the ball flies back up. It might say, like the jump rope makes the ball jump over and over. I'll show this on the screen. So I first played this game for like, I don't know, 20 minutes and just was not getting it and was not liking it a lot. But after that, I tried it again and I fell in love with it. And it was really, really trying hard to beat a run. And I feel like it's very difficult to do that. Yeah, so you can see all these pegs here. Even if you pause, that's fine. Whatever works.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's different types of boards, right? So instead of the standard pyramid, you can do this. I haven't even unlocked this yet. I can't even beat the standard pyramid. There's like 15 tiers you have to go through. So basically, you get money when you hit the pegs. You have to hit like first you got to make $250, then 500, then and it goes way up to like 300,000 in 5 ball drops. So you have to really lay out your board and know the components and how they interact with each other. And there's a lot of different strategies. So it's pretty fun. It's like a more strategy heavy than I anticipated version of like a Balatro or something like that.
Okay.
And it does not take itself seriously, as you can tell by the art.
Sure.
Sometimes it feels really tacky. Like you'll do something and a stick figure guy pops up on the screen. He goes, "Wow, great job!" Like just really weird and wacky. So I ended up having a lot of fun with that and played a ton of that on vacation, and also played a lot of Marvel Rivals right before vacation and a little bit on the Steam Deck. And I love that game. It's great. Obviously, I'm a big Marvel fan, so I love the IP. But they did a good job making an Overwatch style game. Some balanced things to work out, but generally it's a ton of fun. So that's what I've been up to.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it kind of the art, the style reminds me of Cuphead a little bit, right? Yeah, but maybe not quite as detailed as like, time and energy that went into the Cuphead art, which is kind of really like a focal point for that game. But that's pretty cool. I'd be curious. So you've heard of Peglin, right? If you heard of Peglin?
Yes.
I'd be curious. That was, I think, one that came out this year. I'm pretty sure that came out this year.
But, is that a similar type game? I never even really
it's a pachinko type game. And I could be I'm pretty sure that one came out this year, unless that was the one that inspired a different game that came out this year that is not Billionaire. But we saw it in a Switch Direct or something. But
I see it 4 months ago. It's on Game. Is it on Game Pass? I feel like I've seen this somewhere.
But I was just saying, I'd be curious to see, like, if you played both of these and stuff, just kind of your thoughts on either of them.
Well, now I'm gonna have to now. It says Peglin plays like a combination of Peggle and Slay the Spire. All right, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, right. It's right up your alley. So we've got Balatro pachinko and we've got Slay the Spire pachinko, right? But Peggle's the game that I was thinking of that Peglin was inspired by. But
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I'll go ahead and try to think. Oh, let's see, what else have I been playing recently?
Yeah, I've
Um,
got two more, but what do you got?
sure. So I did jump into Indiana Jones a little bit. Played a couple hours
Mm-hmm.
of that. And I'd say that's one that I look forward to playing a little bit more of. I kind of just wasn't in the mood to play it. And
Yeah.
then, in the Discord, we had somebody that finished it, right? So, or is pretty close to finishing it, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some of their feedback, it's like, oh, it sounds really exciting. And then some of it, just like, that it was like a little more stealth than what they care for, which is like, I'm not a big stealth person. They're not a big stealth person. And as well as there was something else. Oh, like, just getting quests and stuff in the way that like, it doesn't like if you get a side quest that you have to like progress somewhere in the main story before you can complete like some of the objectives in the side quests. Like it doesn't, there's not a really good indicator of that. And you just kind of have to like know that or look it up or something. I was like, oh, that's kind of like just annoying because it's like the game does a lot of really cool things in terms of like the user interface with the map and stuff and how it's like it's the map is
Mm-hmm.
built into like you're actually India's holding a map and looking at a map and that's the map that brings up as opposed to just kind of covering up the screen and it's like it takes
Yeah.
it up a notch from like like in Fallout where it's like you look at your Pip-Boy but then the whole Pip-Boy takes a screen so but like this is
Yeah.
like you can actually move around in the world in real time while
Yeah.
looking
It's
at your
not
map.
just Ubisoft quest markers everywhere and stuff, right?
Right. So that like there's some pretty cool stuff there, but some of the missing information like that where it's like, oh, I could go spend just hours looking for something that I literally just can't even do in the game. And like that to me
Yeah.
was
I don't know how true that is. Not that I don't trust
oh
this
sure, sure.
listener. Um, I'm not far enough in the game yet. I've been playing that. That's also on my what I've been playing.
Hmm.
At least in the Vatican area, which is like the first major hub you get to. I don't know that that's true, but maybe it is in some of the later areas.
Yeah.
I've felt that like you can kind of explore any which way you want, and I found a certain area of the Vatican by like traversing a roof and going through a window and through another roof. And I found an area. I'm like, I don't want to quite go there yet. I'm going to go back a different way. And then I ultimately, the way I went led me back to that same spot. And there was side quests there. So I could have gone and done that side quest when I arrived at that spot the first time, but I backtracked and went and did the main quest. So I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I kind of said in the Discord is like, I really want to get through this myself and
Right.
see how that is. I definitely believe the stealth thing that our friend in the Discord mentioned. It definitely is a stealth first game, right? You probably felt that when you
Yeah.
first played it, but you can go all out. I mean, you have a revolver, you have a whip, you have fists. Um, it just certain areas there's so many bad guys.
Yes.
You're not really supposed to go all out, right? It's like, hey, come play our stealth game, but hey, you can fight too if you get into the pickle.
Right.
And you really probably could go full crazy with it if you wanted to.
Yep.
But they want you to do stealth first, for
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, on that note, like I'm a couple hours in and I'm in the, in the Vatican, which is kind of the first main
Mhm.
area you get into. And there's a part where it's just like, yeah, I left the library and or whatever. I think it was a library that I was in. It's just like I said early on, and like you go out and like you said, it's one of those areas where there's like tons of guys. And um, I'm just like I feel like anytime I get there's these small little safe houses right throughout so far the game, like the library, like the museum, like you
Yeah,
kind of sometimes it's like
they're not restricted areas, and there's no like
right.
fascist there. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's just like, but it's not like it's not as like it's not this expansive, like there's not like a market which I'm thinking in terms of in comparison to like an open world RPG or something with which this is not, right? Um or an expansive open world RPG. There's a little bit of maybe
Yeah.
those mechanics in there, but like but it's like the world is so hostile everywhere you go except for these small little huts basically or small little areas as opposed to like something and like which is probably some of the problems I've had with Elden Ring that I've talked about as well. But it's just like I just like
Mhm.
to have like a place I can go and just like chill out, go get go get some gear, do a little bit of like this, and just have a place that is like I don't have to like worry about like some guy's gonna pop up and just like try to attack me and like
I get that. You don't have the freedom to take it all in and explore, which is something you do. Like in Fallout, right? You're kind of it's the wasteland, and sure, there's bad guys, but you could literally like go anywhere. And this
Yeah.
one, you go in the wrong way or linger for too long, they'll be like, "Hey, what? Don't I recognize you?" You know, like
Right.
all of a
Right.
sudden you have that stranger danger type thing,
Just
and,
thinking,
and
I
the,
was
the
just
game could
right.
shift.
Yeah, yeah. I was just
Yeah,
trying to
so I get
enjoy all these
that.
pixels, that Curtis talks about so much. And but yeah, I'm like, yeah, so I'm like in this tent or whatever. And like, like I said, I like to explore every little chest, every little, like and there are things to do, right? There is reward for exploration in this game, which is great. But
Totally.
but yeah, like just like you mentioned, it's just like you can't really linger too much. So it's like you can do it, but it's like it wants you to keep moving. So so yeah, I don't know. It may resonate with me. It may not. But that's and that was also one where it's just like for whatever reason, like I just wasn't in the mood for that type of game as well. So I just kind of like jumped to some more indie stuff, which is kind of what I was feeling, and more party type games, which also I got to play. So I hung out with my nephews and one of their buddies around Christmas time there, and
Mhm.
we played several hours of like Duck Game and Mario Kart and Smash Brothers and those just kind of like type of party games, which is something I haven't really gotten to do. We played till like 2 in the morning, and
Love it.
yeah, it was kind of cool, just like together on the same screen, playing some just funny, like just having laughs and stuff, playing some party games, which is like I haven't done that in a long time. Where it's just like that's kind of like my like memories of playing games throughout like my 20s was a lot of that, and or even like in
Yep.
high school and stuff like that, right? Like so it was really good to get together, and just have some fun playing with people like in person, and something that what didn't take itself too seriously, right? Like I'm not playing a sweaty twitchy shooter, or I'm not playing like some
Yeah.
like death like co-op RPG or something, like it's just like, oh, let's just be silly, right? So
Yeah,
that
and you get those fun highs and lows, like, oh, I lost this one, but I'm gonna win the next one, and
yep.
you get wacky moments. Yeah, it's fun. That's good. Um, I gotta go back to Indiana Jones really quick and
Sure.
gush about the game a little bit.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm still in the Vatican area, right? And a lot of the reviews I read were like, get out of the Vatican as soon as you can because it's just like gets so much better. Um, in what way I don't really know because I didn't want to get any spoilers, but
Mhm.
um, man, this game is like awesome. I texted you today, like this game performs so well in the Series X. It's like shocking, right? It's buttery smooth, 60 frames as far as I can tell. I haven't watched like the Digital Foundry videos or anything, but it's got the ray tracing, all that stuff. It looks amazing, like work of art in that regard. It feels like Indiana Jones. The voice acting is fantastic. The writing is fantastic. Like you have these, um, you know, um, these moments that just feel like indie, right? Like there was a line today, it's like somebody's like, "What are you doing?" It's like looking for a cat, a mummy, yeah, a cat mummy. It's like, well, duh, of course. Like it just comes like it's literally from the movie. So,
Right,
but this
right.
game is like it makes you feel like an adventurer and an explorer. My kids cannot stop watching. They dropped everything they were doing when they heard I turned this game on because they're looking for secret areas. They want to help solve the puzzles, which they're not great at because I have it on the higher puzzle difficulty. But they're looking for secret areas. They want to see the secret doors. What treasures can we find? What artifacts? I'm explaining what artifacts are and what archaeologists are. And
Hmm.
man, it's just like there's even in the Vatican, there's like so many hidden secrets already that we've found. It just makes you feel smart. That the game does a really good job of that. I think it's extremely well designed. It makes you feel like an adventurer. It makes you feel smart, and when you find stuff, it gives you that sense of like wanting to explore. I'm not a history buff, but like back when the History Channel actually showed like modern marvels and history things and stuff like that, I would watch it all the time because I just find it interesting, right?
Yeah.
So like going through the Vatican and seeing all these things, about Christ. We just did a big puzzle about Jesus Christ being crucified stuff and all these different things you had to do and pour in the wine. It was just so cool, right?
Hmm.
To take all this in. So yeah, I think I can't say yet because I haven't finished the game and I haven't come across some of the grievances some of our friends have had. But the game's to me is so far fantastic, like a 9 out of 10. And I could see it being a 10 out of 10, or if it does take some missteps, go down to like an 8 out of 10. But man, you gotta play this game if you have Game Pass for sure.
All right. Well, I will. I'll continue to give it another shot, right? Like I'll keep giving
Yeah,
it
yeah,
a
yeah.
chance.
And
And
sometimes you have to be in the mood, right?
yeah, yeah, and one thing that like Funk mentioned the one that's beaten it
Hmm.
on our Discord, it was a like he was telling me about like there's like different outfits and stuff, and it's like I've gotten one new outfit, and that kind of helps gives you a little bit of disguise basically,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I'm like. Is that am I in an area where I was supposed to put that on? Because I'm pretty sure I just got the outfit. I'm like, am I supposed to be trying that out? And I haven't jumped back in since. But like, is that
Yeah.
what I was missing? Where it's just like, because like there's just so many guys, and I was just like, even the stealth, I was running into issues. I was like, was I supposed to do this? And that's like why, like, was I just like missing the I was
Yeah,
supposed
you
to push
probably
it
were. So you should be wearing that pretty much throughout the Vatican. There's one scene where he changes automatically, but at any time you can change back and forth through the outfits. I only have the two as well, but you should be wearing that disguise outfit, and you can walk freely unless it's a restricted area. So it'll pop up in the bottom left of the screen and say like restricted,
Oh,
and
okay.
you know that like, hey, this is an area where even with the disguise, you got to be
Right, right.
stealthy. Um,
Yeah. And I'm curious to see like if there's more outfits that come along that give you just levels of access as well, right? Like
mhm.
that's a pretty, um what like well used mechanic or whatever in games and stuff. So
Right. And the other thing you have to remember, even in the non-restricted zones, higher level officers of like the fascists, like not just the street thugs, if you stand too close, like literally right in front of them, like you to me essentially, and just stand there, they'll be like, "Hey, wait a second," and the timer thing will start going like, "Hey, don't I know you?"
okay,
And
sure,
he'll
sure.
comment out loud like, "Oh, I got to get away from here." So you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
still, even in a non-restricted zone, if it's a high level officer, be outed. And don't forget, you can always change the difficulty. There's like five. We talked about this before. There's like 5 tiers of difficulty. So maybe you set it on the one that's like, not so worried about the stealth and stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah. And it separates it, right? There's two different difficulty bars too. There's like you can the puzzles is one and then like
how cool is that?
yeah, the combat and stealth or whatever I think is another difficulty
Yeah.
over here. So it's like I
Yeah, I
might
think we
dial that
said
down.
last episode, you and I were like, well, we want the puzzle one to be hard. Like,
Yeah.
where's the, because there's only two difficulties on the puzzle one. It's like easy or medium.
Yeah,
We were like,
right.
give us the hard on the puzzles, man.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Because I'm down for that, right? I just
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. All right.
Anything else you've been playing? I got one more.
Yeah, I just been dipping into some other games. I've been like Blatro, Messenger, just kind of trying to catch up on some games um, that like I've been interested in, wanted to play a little bit more of. But I would say there's probably I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's like standing out. It's like, oh yeah, I really got to talk about this episode, that I haven't talked about before.
Okay. Does that mean it's back to me?
Yeah,
All right, I'll try not to be too long-winded. I finished up Metaphor Refantasio, as the people in the Discord server know. Shout out to the Discord. Please hit up the link in our description and check it out. We love chatting with you guys in there. We're on there every day, just hearing your thoughts and feedback, and just even talking about life and random other things. But anyway, Metaphor Refantasio took me 102 hours. I'm actually curious how the how long to beat is. How long to beat? Metaphor.
a lot of hours.
It is, and that'll tie into some of the stuff we talk about later. But Metaphor, 65 hours, main story, main and extra 84 and a half hours. Completionist, 103 hours. So I was right on the completionist timeline. I don't know that I think I did pretty much everything. Love the game, love the story. It's my first Atlas game. It was awesome. I love the different like archetypes and stuff, and the way you can like cross them over. About 80 hours in, I thought the game was going to be ending the way they kind of set it up. And then it was like, okay, we're going to go get the big bad guy now. Oh, wait. Something happens. Now it's like you've got a whole nother month of in-game time to play. And yeah, it's the difficulty ramped up for me. I was on normal difficulty, not even a higher tier. It was like the game expected you to have grinded a lot, and I did not do that. Well, I did every single side quest, everything I could do, I did it, but I did not go back and repeatedly grind, which some of our listeners did do that. They were running dungeons like extra times or killing extra enemies. I didn't do that, and so I just felt that was like a flaw in the design. That's a big knock on the game for me, is that it did not scale well in that final thing. I was beating my head against the wall, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. And I literally lowered the difficulty level, which is, as my best friend, like
Not
that's
like
unheard
you.
of, right? I'm always putting
Yeah.
it up, right?
Right, right.
So I lowered the difficulty level, and that allowed me to like whack guys really quick because everybody became a bullet sponge, if you will, like just added a ton of health and like buffs and debuffs. And there are ways to deal with those things, but the health was like every fight was a grind because
Oh
you're
yeah.
fighting like all of a sudden you're fighting like level 70 dudes, and you're like level 50 ish if you've just not been grinding. And
Sure.
so it was brutal. And my wife lost interest like at around 80 hours, right? She would check in and hear the story and watch the cool anime cutscenes. And then like literally every day she's like, "You're playing this again? Is it over yet?
Yeah,
Are you
right.
done with this game yet?" And I'm like, "I think so. I'm about to
Right.
fight another boss." And then, it keeps going. But I will say at the very end, the story cap was awesome. Left it open for a sequel. The final like 3 or 4 boss designs were like so wacky in a good way, like top tier designs. They were really cool. Um, as some people may know, there's like weird, creepy designs in these games that Atlas does. But the boss ones at the end were awesome. So overall, awesome game. And I'll get your thoughts on this, but is it kind of a soft year in gaming if this was up for game of the year? Like this game is really good. It is not something in my mind that would be like, oh, this is game of the year, baby. This is an all timer type. So I'm wondering if it's like, was it so soft of a year that some of these games got into the game of the year nominees?
Sure. No, that's a good question. I mean, I think I think this game seems to be pretty well loved by people that love the Atlas games, right? Um, and maybe even brought people in that were not, didn't have the appeal to, the Persona high school type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and
And that
uh,
was me for the most part. As soon as I saw this was like a fantasy type setting, I'm like, oh, this is my time to jump
sure,
in and see if
sure.
I like this.
Yeah, and so I kind of wonder, like, because like say Black Myth Wukong, you just adore it. That's like that's your
Hmm.
jam, right? Balatro is your kind of game, right? You like deck builders, you like these like combat action games, right? And
Yeah.
so probably there's probably others that feel similar to you, like similar about like something like Black Myth Wukong that you did about this. Not that you don't like JRPGs, but like
Yeah.
is a 100-hour anime JRPG specifically like that type of game for you, or are you just more of like you're gonna be more of a fan of Final Fantasy, or you're gonna be more because like I think about like I like say when I play a Pokemon game. I grind by choice, right? Like I like to go
Right.
in
Right.
overpowered, and it is curious. I'm like, is that it's not really a requirement, I don't think, in most Pokemon games, right? Like it's
Hmm.
more of like I like to go in and pretty much one hit each
Yeah.
of the
You want to be like,
gym leaders.
I'm a badass, right? And just
Yeah,
smash these
yeah.
guys. Yeah.
And so I don't know. Like I kind of get that, like, because I put in like 15 hours or whatever in a Persona 3. I put in like 6, 7 hours in a Persona 5. So I'm kind of curious, like if like it was just I don't know. I don't know if like your thoughts on it lasting, it's overstaying its welcome a bit. And it being a game of the year nominee. If that's a pretty common sentiment, right, across the board, it's like it kind of overstayed its welcome. Then maybe, right? But I haven't heard. I've probably heard maybe a little bit of that, right? But I also don't think I don't think there's any denying that this is a relatively softer year, lower year, especially for the 2 years that it's in between, right? I mean, obviously we haven't had
Hmm.
2025 yet, but like the anticipation for it, 2025 is insane right now, right? The hype for it,
Yeah.
all the number of games that are coming out, the list of games, like the high tier games, right, that are coming out is insane. Last year was an all-time year. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about was 2023 the greatest year of gaming ever, and so it's
Hmm.
like it's kind of hard to follow that up, right? Unless you have a year like 2025 and it's like, where it's like you got GTA 6, you got Monster Hunter Wild, you got, the Fable coming back, you've got, all these games, right? So, um, yeah, I don't know. So maybe it does. Maybe it's an indicator of like, oh, like this is something lasts long, but it does make me think. I mean, there's still games that I absolutely adore, and it sounds like you really enjoyed this game that I felt like
Yeah.
could have ended a little bit sooner. But I do not like. I thought you were going to go completely. You mentioned that you were going to talk about something about length of games and stuff like that, right? And I didn't think this was necessarily the direction you were going to go with it. But because I was prepared to be like talk about like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, right? Like where it's just like there's just bloat added to make the game give you more to do, right? For no like that,
Yeah.
like I talked about artificial difficulty in games, added back in the 80s and 90s and stuff, because like there while you mentioned the arcade stuff too, but also just like there's only so much game you could put on a cartridge, right? So you had to make it harder so you could get more out of that game. But now it's
Yeah.
like you can put so much game into you can put as much as you want, right? Just fill it up and just make it a 150 gigabyte game. And then it's like, oh, that's what allows that to, we can just add all these random
Right.
things to fetch quests and stuff like that for people to do, and that gives them added gameplay. And it's like, well, that takes away though then from the quality of the game, in my opinion.
Right. It's just time. I didn't feel like they did that here. Atlas didn't do that, right? Atlas still made a great game. I'm not saying this isn't a great. I loved it. It's a 9 out of 10 probably for me. It's just the game was scaling so well that I felt like there was a good challenge. I could come in and maybe lose some fights, or there's a restart mechanic, like restart a fight. I would use that several times. The bosses had pretty cool mechanics most of the time. And then just after you get to that initial thing where you think you're about to finish the game, and then it's got that little bit of extra, it just jumps. And I hated that. I did not love that jump of like, hey, we know you're level 50, 55. Here's level 70, guys. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And I even Googled it. And I'm like, okay, the final boss, you need to be like, he's like level 80. So I'm like, oh, here we go.
Right.
Like it was just, I think maybe longtime fans of JRPGs or even Atlas games, maybe this is something they're used to. And it's like, oh yeah, now it's the time. Maybe I'm gonna grind my dudes up and cap them all out at their biggest things. And then go take down the big baddie. And I just, for a game, being a dad gamer that works full time and has other stuff going on, I've already invested a lot of time in this game. And not that Atlas did this on purpose, but to me, it wasn't respectful of my time to like
Yeah.
add this filler in a way to go do that. And it was tough to like grind through that last part. And like I said, even load the difficulty level. But when I got to those final like 3 bosses in the final couple hours, loved it. Hated the in between. And the dungeons got longer and longer and had mechanics literally mechanics to slow you down. Like you were like walking through mud in some areas of the dungeon. I'm just like, it was driving me nuts. But
so I got a question and then like a thought. So one game that makes me think of is I'm gonna go with Pokemon Gen 2. Come at your Pokemon generation here. Facing red at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like you get through the game, like it's a pretty lengthy game, right? You play through 2 regions and stuff, and then you do all that, and you get to red at the end, and like boom, right out of the gate, level 80 Pikachu, and you're like, I haven't played a level 60 Pokemon in this game, right? Like, so
yeah.
So I'm gonna so, and it's kind of related to my question is, do you think the game was like added stuff to make it added content to make it or not, again, maybe not artificially but like that wasn't respectful of your time? Do you think it was like more content that was the problem, or do you think the difficulty spike was the problem?
The difficulty spike,
Okay.
probably. If there wasn't a difficulty spike and it scaled well, I would have just ripped through that pretty quick. Granted, the dungeons were very long, and there are there's some mechanics in the dungeons later in the game that some people I could easily see them hating. It didn't bother me too much, but there's like puzzles you have to figure out, and so you can be traversing through the dungeon and it teleports you back to where you started, essentially. And it's a puzzle to figure out, but I could see that really pissing people off. Like, dude, this is eating my time as I'm trying to figure out this stupid puzzle. I just want to go through the dungeon, fight guys, and get to the big baddie and see my cool anime cutscene, right?
Yeah.
So no, I think it was the difficulty spike though in general.
Okay. And that to me is it distinguishes like punishing from challenging, right? And I think I've talked a
Yeah,
little bit about
yeah.
this, right? Where it's like something like Celeste or Super Meat Boy are very challenging games, right? Especially the maybe not the base game of Celeste, but the Chapter 9 DLC, the free
Mhm.
DLC that it has, are very challenging games. But in terms of punishing, like you just like it's the moment you hit something that kills you, right? In a level in Celeste or Super Meat Boy, you're respawned at the start of the level, which is a short level. So it's just like each level is something that should take you 5 to 15 seconds, right? So it's just like you're just over and over and over again. You could play, you could die 50 times and not really feel that bothered by it because it's
Right.
just like you're just constantly respawning basically right where you were. It's just getting that challenge, that precision of the controls of the platforming, right, or whatever. That teleporting you back to the dungeon sounds very punishing, and that's usually something that doesn't appeal to me as something that's very punishing.
Mhm.
Because again, it almost it doesn't feel respectful of your time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. No, gosh, there's an interesting conversation here to have. I don't know how much we want to have. But there are also
Mhm.
just games that like I loved. One game that I loved that I felt carried on a little too long, and then one game that I was loving, and then ended up despising because it carried on too long. Or Sea of Stars and Eastward, right? That I've talked about, and I was kind of like thinking about those when
Yep.
and it's just like those are games that like to me, Sea of Stars it kind of like once you started getting to the end, you're like, okay, like I get what you're trying to do here. Let's move on, right? Let's move forward, right? Let's
Yeah.
like I get it.
Yeah.
I've experienced what you wanted to say here. I think like to at least one that I wanted to get out of what you were trying to say here. Now I'm ready
Yep.
for the next like thing. I don't need any more of this. Like but it's again a game that like spoiler alert, I will be talking about in our conversation of here of favorite games that we've played this year or beat this year or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
but and then like I said, Eastward is a game that it's like that's honestly one that I don't know that necessarily. Again, I think it was just kind of like, all right, I kind of get like what you were getting out of here, but like I think that one was more of like I hated the combat gameplay so much that it's just like as the game went longer and longer, the more and more I hated that combat gameplay. But the story to me progressed pretty well, right? Like
Yeah.
the story progression is it's like I have these mixed feelings the longer I get away from Eastward. Like, oh man, that was really cool, and it was like a beautiful art style, and it was just like it was a cool world that world building was cool, the story was fun and cool and just quirky and um just right up my alley. But it's just like so I get further and further removed from having to that tedium of that combat that was clunky and awful,
Mhm.
and it's just like I just start remembering the game from what I did enjoy about it, and I'm like, so it's like
Yeah.
it's funny because I'm like
Those
I
rose
feel like
tinted glasses, right?
yeah, right, for sure. But yeah, that was a game because of the combat. Like I think it's just like because there's such a bad gameplay mechanic that after I had to play it for 40 hours, like I'm just like I hate this game. But for the first 20 hours, yeah, it's so I don't know, it's just interesting about like thought about games that last too long, that overstay their welcome, and reasons that feels that way, right? Because it's like we both put over 150 hours into Tears of the Kingdom. Um, I don't think that game overstayed its welcome, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep, that's a good point. Yep.
But
So
all
it just
right.
depends. So let's roll into our next stuff. We're about 50 minutes into the episode here, and we don't want to. We might be pushing a 3 hour episode if we're not careful.
Yeah, right.
I joked that we were going to do this in an hour and a half. We're definitely not. Spoiler alert: we try this every time. 2
Never.
hours. Here we come.
Remember we started out
Uh,
like 45 minutes to an hour?
nah. Yeah. It's just going to progress. Every year we add 15 minutes. So you want to? We discussed we're going to do our predictions for next year, our most anticipated games or gaming things next year, and what our goals are for next year. Am I missing anything?
Oh, yeah. So I was going to ask, do you want to wrap up 2024 with our games of the year
Um,
or before we move to 2025, or do you want to start
yeah,
with?
that's great. Let's do that. Let's do it briefly. You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So I was just
Okay.
going to mention some of the games that like, I thought that came to mind, for me when
Okay.
I,
I'm gonna step away from my machine really quick while you chat. I will be back in 30 seconds.
okay. Yeah. So, we've talked about Balatro. That was a game of the year, nominee. And, man, I was having this conversation with Mark. So, but anyway, I'll have it with the listeners here. Balatro, was a great game. That was definitely one that came to mind. Zelda. I mean, I've got my Zelda coffee mug here. I've got a Zelda shirt on right now. Zelda's always going to be a game that comes to mind for me. I really enjoyed Echoes of Wisdom, I've expressed my thoughts in the previous episodes here. Dead Cells is a game I really dived into this year. I may have played a little bit of it prior to this year, but this was the year that I really got to get a feel for what that game was. Vemba is a quick game that I played and beat. That you could beat that one in an evening. It was a pretty cool game. Botany Manor was one is one that really sticks with me in a similar way to like something like What Remains of Edith Finch did. Just kind of some cool puzzles. Resident Evil 2 was my first dip into a non-Resident Evil 5 Resident Evil game, a pre-Resident Evil 5 Resident Evil game. And I really enjoyed that. Control is a game I've talked about on here, really enjoying, that I haven't finished up yet. I mentioned Sea of Stars, right? Sea of Stars is really become one of my favorite indies ever. It's a little difficult for me, so I beat it on January 3rd. And I can't remember if I included this last year in our wrap up, because I think our last episode of last year was like sometime in November. So I can't remember how much I talked about Sea of Stars, because I also played that in a little bit of chunks because of Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3. So that's probably going to eliminate it from it. But Mark, I just wanted to say, I mentioned Balatro Road 96, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Dead Cells, Vemba, Resident Evil 2, Control, Sea of Stars. And my game of the year came down when I really just kind of like, all right, what were this year like are the games that I just like when I'm looking at these lists of games that I've played and beaten, that I just think about that really just like, okay, these are my favorite games that I've played this year, or that I've beaten this year. And so Road 96 is one that I mentioned. And then I don't think there's any denying that Death's Door was my favorite game that I played and beat this year. I had played like 2 hours of it before, so I was looking at kind of like the gameplay and how long to beat told me I put like 16 hours into it this year, and I have 18 hours of gameplay on this on Xbox. So it's like I'd started it prior to this year, but I really played most of the game this year, the hefty majority of this game this year, and I can't stop talking about it. I can't stop talking about how good it is. Right, the art style is really cool. The world building is really cool. The exploration is just incredible. There's no map in this game, and like I usually hate that. I usually hate it, because I'm like, oh, where do I go? I just want to know where I want to go. But like, I just had so much fun roaming around this world. And it's like, you know what if I go this way? What if I do this? It's such a well-designed game. As a nerve, just fantastic. And I guess I could talk about Titan Souls as well, because I jumped into that because I love Death's Door so much. Yep. I was like, I need something else from these people. And it's two guys, right? Like
what you also like a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And David Fenn is the composer for this game. I've been listening to David Fenn radio basically on Spotify, and it's also helped me discover some other composers, as well as like something Gear, not David Gear, but he did like a Short Hike and Moonlighter, and maybe David Fenn did Moonlighter. I don't know. But anyway, these guys like have been listening to the Owlboy soundtrack and like the Tome TOEM that soundtrack, and I'll be picking that game up just simply because of the soundtrack. But anyway, back to Acid Nerve and Death's Door. I've expressed how it's my favorite 2D Zelda, right? I have a Zelda game on this list, and it's like, how could I pick that game to be my game of the year when I've said no? Death's Door is easily my favorite 2D Zelda game, or top-down Zelda game. I can't wait to see more. I'm a little worried, right? Because there was, I think, 6 years between Titan Souls and Death's Door, and I'm like, yeah, is it going to be 6 years before we get another game from them? And it's like, oh, it's like I'll wait. I'll be patient, but I want more from them. So Death's Door, if you're into Zelda games at all, I highly, highly, highly recommend, especially like top-down Zeldas, the tradition, the old school Zelda games. It's a little more. I think the combat's definitely more difficult, right? It's almost like this baby's first Souls-like type game, right? Like it's Souls-like type combat, but it's the difficulty spike is not quite as high. It's not quite as punishing as I was mentioning earlier as like Souls can be. You usually have a spawn point pretty close to the boss fights, and But there's some pretty like challenging areas as you're progressing through levels and stuff too, where you have to like take a swarm of different enemies and stuff like that. And it's almost a puzzle in and of itself in the combat, right? The combat is almost designed to be a puzzle, and not even almost, it is designed to be a puzzle, right? And so
Yeah.
that's probably really a big draw to me as well, right? I love puzzles and stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, I gotta take this, and it gives you, there's definitely different ways you can approach it, right? Because it's combat, right? It's not a logic puzzle; it's a combat puzzle, and so it's like I could take these guys out first, but it's like if I go for the ranged enemies first in this, or if I go for the close combat guys first, right? Like I don't know, just such a well designed game, like there's a lot of variety in terms of like the different like levels and stuff that you go through, the door mechanic, the transportation, the teleportation, and the doors and stuff like that it's just really cool. Really, I would say it's a really unique game, right? And just excellent game. Can't stop. I can't talk enough about this game. Death's Door.
Love it. Love it. I enjoyed the game a lot. I ripped through that pretty fast. It was really good. So I'm also
I'm
down to play whatever they come up with.
So just like I picked up Sea of Stars physically after beating it on Game Pass, like I beat Death's Door on Game Pass, and I'm like, it's $4.99 right now on eShop, and I believe Steam sale. I kind of like, oh, should I pick it up? And I was like, I kind of want the physical copy, right? Like I want to touch it because it's, but and it's like I said, same thing with Sea of Stars there that I have, and I'll probably play through co-op with my son. I was like, with it, in that Sea of Stars update, but yeah. So yeah, you said you loved it. You want to rip through some of your favorite? Oh, and I do want to talk about Road 96 I'm sorry, real quick. Excellent game.
All right,
Yeah,
go.
it's kind of I would say it's almost like a Life is Strange game if Life is Strange took place in the Firewatch. like you took Firewatch and made it a Life is Strange game kind of thing. That's what you get with Road 96. It's a little bit there's like a loop to it, so which I guess you kind of say like Oxenfree, but you're playing this character and going through different timelines of you're not any one character, right? You're a bunch of like there's a bunch of kids that are like fleeing the country, like teenage kids that are or teenage young adults, right, that are fleeing the country because like there's just like political turmoil in not quite United States, but it's certainly the United States, and it's like there's certainly not a not so subtle message being sent there, but it's you're taking these road, you're hitchhiking, you're walking, you're stealing cars and stuff like that, to get out of the country and head to basically Canada, and you're at the border and you got to find different ways to get out of the you can find different ways to get out of the country, even at the border there's different paths to take, and you're going through the stories and you're meeting these characters along the way, which are consistent throughout the story, right? You have so your character isn't consistent, but the characters that you meet along the way, you're kind of unpacking their stories, and there's like a progression of how much of their story you've unlocked. And so I played through this game 6 times. I want to say 6 times.
Dang.
Yeah. And it's a pretty quick playthrough. So, so there's just a lot to uncover here, and honestly I really enjoyed it. It's kind of in that sense reminds me again like Oxenfree, which is another game that I talk about as one of my favorite indies ever, where it's like multiple playthroughs, kind of like in Oxenfree, multiple playthroughs kind of impact the successive playthroughs or the following playthroughs.
Right.
So that's also a game I played through multiple times just to kind of see what else is there to discover. And it's a little bit of a different mechanic in Road 96, but it's still, it gives good reason to continue, like to play over and over again. But,
right.
All right. So those are 2 games I could definitely recommend, but, so let's go into
you're not going to say your game of the year yet, your personal game of the year?
No, I said Death's Door.
Oh, Death's Door is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Personal game of the year that I played this year, like right. It's new to me. That basically new to me, all but.
Okay, I played a lot of games. I was kind of scrolling through some like the Game Pass releases, and then also what I played on Switch and what I played on PS5 and what I played on Steam. Played a lot of games. Maybe I should play less games. I don't know. Probably not. Like Pal World, I played Potato, Big Kitty Little City, 40K Space Marine. I played some Diablo 4. Oh man, what else did we play? I played Hellblade 2. I played through that. Played Astrobot. I played Black Myth Wukong. I played Final Fantasy VII Remake. Jumped into Marvel Rivals, Call of Duty, Fortnite seasons. Played a bunch of Core Keeper. Tried Kunitsu, Gami Path of the Goddess. I mean, there's several other ones I kind of dipped my toes in, but didn't play too long. I played Inscription and got through the first third of that game and didn't like how it turned out from there. What else did we play? I played a bunch of stuff on Steam, Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero, almost all the Game of the Year contenders other than Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree. It was a massive, massive year now that I look back on it. Destiny 2, The Final Shape. Balatro, of course. Man, it's really hard to pick a personal game of the year. I would say the one that I was most man, I really liked Black Myth Wukong, and I actually still have to beat the final boss. That's on my list to do in the next couple weeks because I was stuck on that trying to beat the secret, like ultra secret ultimate boss. It's just crazy difficult. So I'll probably go back to that. It's hard to pick between Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot, and Metaphor. What the best game of the year for me was. I will give it to Astrobot because of the way it got my family engaged and how much they like. I could see them loving games. Like, of course, they're not going to love like a Metaphor or something. They're just not one. My kids aren't watching the Metaphor stuff mainly, but like to see like what games can do to people, even as like a little kid with Astrobot and as an adult, like it's just fun and is what at its core what games should be about. And of course, they can be about so much more than that, which is great too. But just the pure joy and fun and like that time together is really valuable to me. So I think Astrobot's my personal game of the year this year. Not that the others didn't deserve to win for me. I liked a lot of them, and a shout out to Destiny 2 Final Shape because I thought that was an awesome DLC, and the final mission was really cool where you get to normally those fire teams are of like 3, or you can go up to like 6 for a raid. There's a 15-player mission at the end, and if you don't have buddies, they queue you in with random people, and it's just so awesome. So shout out
I have 14 buddies, so I would definitely have to get queued in.
Yeah, right. I don't think I played with anybody I knew at the time, but it was so cool. It's like that penultimate like Avengers Endgame moment where everybody comes in and fights the big baddie. So that was awesome. But yeah, I'll say Astrobot.
Okay, so there were 2 missions there that you had 2 games that I thought you would mention that you didn't, and that's Final Fantasy VII remake and Balatro. I thought would have been more in the conversation for you.
Balatro, yeah, probably. I have a lot of hours in Balatro spread across Switch and Steam Deck.
Sure.
Yeah, I think again, I just give the edge to like the Astrobot. I got the whole family engaged. The performance of the game is incredible. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's very unique in the way it does. I've gushed about this game a lot, so I won't go on. But it's very unique in the way it does some stuff with some of the other Sony properties in there. So the big thing I'm thinking is like, hey, what's next for these? And I think I mentioned this in the Discord. Co-op, right? Can they pull off an Astrobot 2 to 4 player co-op and keep that same level of technical prowess and performance, same level of fun, bring some new stuff to the table, but also don't get that wacky camera thing going like we talked about with Super Mario 3D World, right?
Yep. I was just about to say, I was like, is this a thought that you had after you started 3D World with your family? Right?
It is. Yep, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would love to see them take that as their next challenge. So
I was gonna say, I think going to 3D World route after having a Super Mario Odyssey route is a step back. But I think there's a way to do co-op platforming that you're not taking a step down from what you did with Astrobot, right? Like, there is a way to do it where it's just like you're almost taking a step over, like it's not quite the same as Astrobot, but it's like it's just a little bit different, right? Not to take away, but it's built to be again multiplayer co-op. Yeah, that's interesting. All right. So that kind of wraps up, Astrobot's your game of the year. Do you have is there anything, 2024 else? So I will say, we talked about being a soft year. Sorry, I was just about to ask you if you had any other thoughts on
Mhm.
2024 before we move to 2025. My thoughts are,
Um,
go ahead.
Go.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Nope.
Okay.
I just think we'll let the listener go. All right, this is where the listener, you guys chime in, this is where we would have Curtis chime in if he was freaking here
Oh
ever.
yeah.
Um, 2024. Obviously, I just listed off a ton of games I played, so I can't say like it wasn't a great year for gaming. It was like every year's just has been great. Like we're really lucky and blessed to have like a such a widespread amount of options to play and so many unique different games and ways to experience them. But it definitely was, I think, a softer year than last year. Like it was last year was an all-timer year that you're comparing to like 2007 and stuff like that, right? So is '07 is the one I'm thinking of, I think. I would say industry wise, it's a scary time for the industry, right? A lot of merging and condensing of studios, closures, layoffs. We're seeing that executives that maybe don't have a grip on what the consumer wants, they're looking at the dollars. They're going after these trend chasing. Some of these trend chasing things have been in the works for multiple years, so they're just kind of like sunk cost fallacy. They can't let it go, right? And maybe that's not even a fallacy. Like sometimes there's just literally in contracts or like the way you license things and IP, like you have to release a game, or the same thing happens in movies, right? Like the Lord of the Rings animated movie that they just released. They're under contract to release a Lord of the Rings movie every so often in order to retain the IP. And so that was the goal for that movie, was to put it in theaters. It was in theaters for a week. Now it's on digital already. Anyway, side note. So industry, very, very nervous about the industry and what it means. I hope more companies like Larian um, like really stick up for developers and push back on these executives, trying to control things and push things and do all these trends and just let them make great games. So I'm looking forward to next year and seeing how that pans out. And hopefully the industry ticks up more and we don't lose a lot of jobs and creativity in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned like Larian, and Larian's kind of like it's hard to call them an indie studio at this point, right? They have a
Right.
lot of I think it
Well, they
has
are.
has a
Yeah, they're independent, but people do
stake.
invest in them, right?
Yeah, yeah. But also but they started as this indie studio, right? That just grew like
Yeah.
through what doing great games, right? Like
Mhm.
and I think it's one thing that's really cool in to with the gaming industry, and hopefully is just kind of a trend that continues, is that like indie games have, I think, much more significance in the video game industry than other industries like the music industry, or the
Mhm.
in terms of a cultural relevance, in terms of like occasionally you get like people into music or people into movies and people that are into indie type movies, indie type music, and like other types of media, right? But like you had Balatro as nominated as Game of the Year, right? Like in terms of like
Right.
15, was it 15 million copies sold or something like that this year, right? Of Balatro.
Mhm.
You've got Stardew Valley sold 40 million copies, right? Made by one guy. And Larian is like, again, it's just like even if it's what are if they are fully a truly independent studio at this point, again, because if with their investment from people like Tencent and things like that, it's like regardless, they grew from a truly independent studio, and it's just like to see that they are able to still stay true to that character. Like you said, you want to see that trend. Who's next, right? Who's going to continue to grow? And you get like publishers like Devolver and Raw Fury and
Mhm.
all these other publishers out there that really are supporting the industry, the indie game industry. And that's one thing I hope to see, and almost like take a place where it's like there's fans of all types of tastes in video games, right? And just like there are in other media and stuff, but like you've almost seen, I feel like you've seen a disappearance, at least in film, of movies made the way that they were. I don't want to say necessarily disappearance, because there are some that come out, and they usually, some of them hit really popular from the way movies or shows or callbacks to generations prior, right? The 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, and stuff that are going to be at least more relevant to us, right? Like something like Stranger Things, at least is callback to the 80s, right? And it kind of leans into that aesthetic. But yeah, I was watching some like mid 2000s Christmas movies with my wife, and I'm just like, gosh, man, like this really just feels like these movies, and they're just Christmas movies, but it's like it really feels like movies that were made by the creator as opposed to the suits, right? And like a lot less influenced by the suits. And it just seems like today in entertainment, suits have so much more influence and say on what gets published, or what gets put out, the output in every industry, than ever before. And it's like before, because there's all this data that is like, oh, this is what people want, this is what people want, this is what people want, this is what people are going to spend money on, right? As opposed to like a creator, like, all right, we just want you, Peter Jackson, we just want you to make the best Lord of the Rings movie you can make with this budget, like, right, do what you can do. We're not going to like have so much. I'm sure there were some. I'm sure there always has been like, oh, I want this to be in there, and I'm sure it's been different with different studios or different suits, right, that have been involved. But like, but the output used to be, and it's like, sure, there was maybe more risk and stuff in it, but there was also just a higher ceiling when you let the creator do their work,
right?
But sorry, a little tangent there that you like kind of spun me off on thinking about some of the things.
But that makes sense, and I would agree with that too. So yeah, it's just and don't get me wrong, like take for example Spider-Man 2. We know that thing had a massive budget, and they had to sell a crazy amount of copies to even start to be profitable. The game is incredible, like super awesome, fun, incredible. Sure. And I think those experiences should be in the industry. I don't think everybody should be going all in on those experiences all the time, which is the way we were trending in a way.
Yeah, which is cool. Which makes it cool to see Astrobot, right?
Yeah,
come out win Game of the Year,
and
by Mark.
Yeah, and shout out Nintendo at the thing, right? That was a true game dev moment against the suits. 100%. He said, I shouldn't really say this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah.
Boom. We're nowhere without them, whether they're the competition or not. We're nowhere without these guys that make fun games. And that's what, and literally that's what I said it's all about, right? Fun games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned it was a great year in gaming, and I'm just kind of like looking, I played a little over half as many hours this year as I played last year in video games. And I look at my two of my probably 3 or 4 most played games this year, and it's Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Fallout 4, right? And obviously, like Balatro is the only game that and Echoes of Wisdom are the only. There's a couple of other indies, I guess. There are a few new games that I played. And I will have like a few games in here that games that I want to go back to and I want to continue playing and stuff that came out here. It was a good year for indies, and I think we mentioned it's a good year in VR. It was a good year in mobile for so. It's just a hard year to compare to the years that surround it. So
yeah.
But,
all right, let's head into a wrap on 2024.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
There's a delay going from the land down under back to.
Takes a few milliseconds to get completely to the opposite side of the world. So
yeah. So let's dive into predictions for 2025. We can probably go for. I mean, you can go all day. Your daytime over there, but it is almost 1 a.m. for me, so we could probably go another hour. Okay. We'll just toss predictions back and forth. I've got like 6 or 7. I'm not going to monologue forever about them, but I'll do one, you do one. We'll just go back and forth. Is that cool?
So predictions are kind of probably lower out of the 3 things we talked about for 2025. Coming into here. So
for you.
Yeah. I'm kind of more interested about the goals and the anticipations, right? The excitement that we have.
Okay.
But yeah, I do. I think that I've got a projection for indie game of the year next year. It's possibly the greatest indie game ever made, and that's Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So that's my big prediction, right?
How long have you been sitting on this joke? How long?
I told this is the dad joke I told you. Before the episode, I was like, I got a dad joke I've been sitting on for a couple weeks now, just ready to fire off, looking for the right opportunity.
All right.
I had to wedge it in there at least. I was like, I got to make sure this gets out there. But so I hope
I'm gonna put a 10 ban on you in the Discord server 1 week.
But yeah, no. So it's interesting. Yeah, like, do you? So I'm gonna ask. Maybe I'll ask you some questions for predictions, since I don't have as many predictions. But I'll fire off
That's
with
fine.
one question for you. Do you think so? Indiana Jones is eligible for next year's Game Awards. Do you think it gets forgotten by November next year?
Oh man, I hate that. I think it probably does.
It
The
doesn't
year's
help.
so stacked. We'll talk
Yeah.
about anticipation, but the year's stacked. It's an amazing game. Like even some people saying like, "Hey, this could be like an all-timer game in terms of like stealth combat and stuff like that." Like that style of game, and they're probably not wrong. Like Dishonored's one of the more peak games for that. Like Thief, sometimes Deus Ex in a way, and this is up there with those. No
Mhm.
doubt in my mind. Just playing it, unless it drops off a cliff as I continue to play the game, it's up there. But just the way that the human brain works and all these releases and the Game Awards not until the end of the next year, it's going to get forgotten about. I feel like.
You think so? Yeah, because I was trying to think about that. Right, like Balatro came out. Did that come out? It came out at the beginning of this year, late last year, right?
Yeah.
And it's still, but I think that's a game that like is something that people just keep coming back to. It's like something that you just like, like, oh man, I look up and I've watched 6 episodes of The Office and played 3 hours of Balatro 3 times a week for the last 40 weeks.
It also came out on mobile, so it had a re-release halfway
Right. So
through
it kind of
through
researches.
the
Well,
year.
this will come out on PS5, right?
Oh, that's a good point.
So
That
do you
might
think
help it. That might
it
help
gives
it.
it a resurgence, right? And it's like it wasn't eligible. Actually, now that thinking about that, I wonder if that was like, because it's like, oh, Xbox, why couldn't you have pumped this out before the deadline to get this in the game of the year? Now, in terms of what kind of year we had last year, it probably would have been a better game to have in last year's game, in 2024's Game Awards. But just from a competition standpoint, but I wonder if like, oh, we're having this timed exclusive. Let's make sure the Xbox and the PlayStation release. So there's no debate on whether, oh, is this a last year release or is it a this year release? Should it be eligible for the Game Award? There's no question on whether it should be eligible for the Game Awards. And honestly, the PS5 is probably going to be its bigger, right? Like it's going to be its bigger
Market share, yeah.
yeah, it's going to have more visibility on the PlayStation.
Yeah. That's a good
based on the
point.
market share.
And yeah, as long as it's a good port, right?
Sure.
I would love to see the chaos if the Xbox version was on this game of the years and the PS5 version was on next year. Because Keeley would do it. He seems like no rules, no bar, no rules, right? Like,
right. Oh man,
anyway,
that would give us a good episode next year.
oh yeah, that would get people fired up. That would up the sub count. Okay. Anyway, I'll give you one of my predictions, then we'll go back. Nintendo Switch 2 has biggest console launch ever.
Oh wow. Okay. I think that.
Yeah, you're like, okay, yeah, I like that.
Yep. So I don't think it'll outsell the Switch, right? I don't think it's going to hit that height.
Ooh.
But I do
They
think
it is. I feel like
I do think
like they're prepping real numbers, like crazy hardware numbers. I feel like
I do think saying that they have the biggest launch for a console ever. I think that is pretty. I think they're, like you said, they're prepping stock. They're like just trying to, like, how do we beat scalpers? Let's just put out more units than scalpers can eat up, and everybody that wants a Switch can just buy a Switch, right? Like I wouldn't be shocked to see them sell 25 million Switches by the end of the year. Which would be, like up with like the large, one of the highest years for the Switch in general, I think. And I want to say they sold 13 million Switches, maybe somewhere like 13, 15 million Switches in the first year. And if you think about it, and I think it's a good chance that the Switch 2 comes out later. I mean, I think it's hard to imagine that the Switch 2 comes out before March 3rd, before or on March 3rd. At this point, and maybe there are rumors that it's going to release in March, but I think it'd be tail end of March, if anything, maybe just to get a few units sold in this fiscal year. But it's like, I don't know, maybe they're just prepping, just like make next fiscal year just insane. and to have every day of the Switch 2's release. But yeah, no, it's a pretty good. I think that's a good prediction. I think,
Yeah, 13 million year one
yeah.
for
So
Switch. It can't beat that.
no, it can. Oh, it can. I don't think it's going
Okay.
to sell 150 million
Yeah.
in its lifespan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just talking about biggest.
Yeah, this year, like I said, I wouldn't be shocked to see it sell 25 million.
Damn.
Almost double. Almost double.
Does the not scalpers, like the scarcity, you know that concept of like the scarcity makes people want it more, and I gotta get it. Does that make you rush out? I mean, that's a real thing, right? That's
Right.
a real sociological.
You can't find these anywhere. I see one, I'm gonna grab it. But like also because you can find one, like it's like, are there more people that want one that are gonna get one? Than there are people that like don't want one that would get one just because they see it. I think so.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I think I think there's a chance this thing sells 13 million in the first like 2 months.
Okay, I was gonna pitch it back to you, but let me go to my next prediction because I think it's going to contribute to what you're saying. Grand Theft Auto 6 comes to Switch 2's launch title.
Switch 2 is a launch title. Oh my goodness!
Depending on when the Switch 2 releases.
Oh yeah. I think we see the Switch 2 before
at least in the first year,
probably
at least in the
half of the year.
Yeah, so let's just say not a Switch 2 launch. If the timing works out, Switch 2 launch title, but GTA 6 launches on Switch 2.
Yeah. That's kind of how I was. I think I'm sorry. That's actually how I received your prediction there. No.
Agree with that prediction? No.
Okay. No. No, I don't think so. I think we get a lot of I think the launch lineup.
Bookmark this.
Huh? Okay, yeah, right.
Tell the listeners to bookmark this.
Yeah. Do we want to take a bet on this one, like Curtis and I have for him having a Switch if he ever shows back up?
Ooh, this is a good one. Let's figure out the bet and do it in the Discord.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Yeah. We'll take comments in the Discord as well as suggestions of what the bet should be.
Or on the YouTube video. That's fine.
There we go. But I was just talking about the launch lineup. I think the Switch is, so I guess I'll just kind of bounce back. Maybe I didn't even think about the Switch 2, honestly, when I was thinking about predictions. I was thinking about because it hasn't been announced yet. Who said this?
Who are you?
Out? But
yeah, that's true.
no, my prediction is the Switch 2 is coming out next year. But no, I think the launch lineup is going to be insane, and I think it's going to be a lineup that seems absolutely loaded just because it's going to have a bunch of ports like within the first several months, whether it's day one or not, right? Think about like in that initial Switch trailer, we saw Skyrim on the airplane, right? We saw Skyrim being played on a little tablet on a Nintendo device, right? A Nintendo handheld. In this trailer, and you're like, what? Skyrim, right? And that was because like Skyrim was at that point, still only about 5 years old when we saw that, right? So it was like, I could play Skyrim in handheld, and now that's like, of course you can, right? Like we've got the Steam Deck, the Switch is 8 years old.
Yeah. But at that time,
it was insane. And I think the way that Nintendo is going to try to recapture that sense, that feeling that, like of holy crap, I can play this in handheld, is you're going to just see, you're going to see games like, maybe Final Fantasy 16, maybe, like I think Xbox is going to come to the table, right? You'll see, maybe you'll even see Outer Worlds or Outer Worlds. I'm sorry, Avowed, Outer Worlds 2, or at least games like maybe you see Fallout 4, right? Like again, another Bethesda. I just keep or you see. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some other bigger games. Obviously, this game this year, not. But, I think Metaphor is an easy one that you could see in the first year, right? What else? I
agree with you though, because you're gonna port. They should port some heavy hitter games to show that the hardware is for real.
Cyberpunk,
right? That it's an upgrade. Yeah. Whoa.
Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring.
Whoa.
Right, you easily could see. I could easily see all three of those hitting the Switch next year. Wait, what? And people,
because that's a game changer. Right? Like, those are older games, but you got to think like even some of our listeners and people in general, like Nintendo's a Nintendo thing. It's not adult stuff. And yeah, their games are great, but that's like kiddie stuff or like certain little things that I want to dip my toes in. But when you say, hey, you can also play Cyberpunk on the same piece of hardware, you can play Elden Ring, you can play Baldur's Gate, you're like, whoa, okay.
Right.
And
Red
yes,
Dead
you
2,
can do
right?
that, and you can do that on the Steam Deck, but you cannot play legally Nintendo games on the Steam Deck.
Right.
And love them or hate them, they're top tier games. They're
Also,
popular.
there's roughly, let's say, 5 million Steam Decks out there, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be more than 5 million Switches day one.
Right.
Switch 2s, right? I mean, there's
Right.
150 million Switches out there right now, right? And so it's just like, like the Steam Deck, yeah, between you and I and stuff, it's like I've already had that experience, but like to the masses, right? To the average
Masses.
person, right? Like it's just like, holy crap. First of all, like I said, there's still that like I can play Elden Ring on Nintendo and
Right.
in
And think
handheld.
think Yeah, and think about the kids that were like 7 or 8 in 2017
They're in high school now.
are now 16, and I can play the Elden Ring now on this. So like kind of growing with them. All right, we gotta keep going.
Oh yeah.
I have another Switch one for you really quick. This is my
Okay.
last Switch one. Switch, the new feature, whatever it is, of the Switch has a negative knee-jerk reaction online and then becomes wildly popular. That's my prediction. What do you think about that?
Okay.
Because we all know there's got to be some new feature, right? We know from leaks that there's likely some new button, whatever it is. Let's say, I don't know, let's say they have a video camera add-on or they have a webcam in it or they have a street pass or whatever. We don't know what it's going to be, but it's Nintendo. They don't just make new hardware to make new hardware. They always want to innovate in some way and have some new way to play. My guess, people are going to pan it. They're going to say, this is stupid. And then they're going to have like a Mario game or some big third party person that they publish with. It's going to drop a game and it's going to be like, whoa, this feature's awesome. It's going to become wildly popular. What do you think?
I'm going to counter that.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that they're going to have some like just bizarre feature that comes out on this thing, right? And people are going to be like, oh my gosh, they're Nintendo screwed up, right? They're going to have that knee jerk reaction like you're talking about. And then the thing's going to come out and it's just going to be left to the dust and never like there might be a couple games that launch that use it. Think of the IR camera, right? Think of the 3D feature in the 3DS, right? Like these mechanics are always there. And sometimes they get heavily integrated. Like, like the Wii is one thing that like there was no getting around the motion controls. That was the system, right? So it's just like that gimmick was the system. But like there's so many. I mean, we eventually got a 2DS because like the gimmick that was for the 3DS literally got abandoned at the end of its life cycle. And something like the IR camera, right? And I remember some of these like like the IR camera, like what, like whatever, dude, Nintendo was like, like there was some knee jerk. I don't want to say it was like some big outcry or anything, but like that feature because everybody was focused on the handheld component, but it's like people were like, what is this IR camera? Like, this is dumb or whatever. And it's just like, okay, then it just got used in Labo. It got used in a couple things or whatever. And then, the sub eating mini game in 1-2 Switch. And it was pretty much it, or it gets like, just kind of subtly integrated, right? People are kind of rave still, like, maybe not so much anymore, but for the first 5 years of the Switch, they raved about like the HD Rumble, right? Like this haptic feedback.
Yeah. And then the PS5 showed up and it was like, nah, bro, hold my beer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, so it's just like, and I'm sure they'll continue to evolve on that. And I'm sure they'll have some buzzword name for it or whatever. But almost like the Apple type of way, like, look
magic,
at what we
whatever.
Did. Yeah. And just have, some kind of Nintendo name to it. But I
think that's a good counter. And for the listeners, jump in the comments and let us know which side you're on this, because I could easily see either of these happening. It could be forgotten or it could become wildly popular. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below.
What if the Switch 2 just sells like 20 million units in its life? I don't see that in its life. Well, I don't see that as a possibility, to be honest. I think, like I said, I think in the first year it might sell more than that.
They would have to not do a Switch 2. They would have to go so far deviated from their winning formula that,
Right. Wow. Exactly.
You have another prediction? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 left. They're pretty short.
All right. Gosh, I'm gonna say that Obsidian has at least one game nominated for Game of the Year.
Ooh. What are the known Obsidian games besides Avowed?
Avowed and Outer Worlds 2.
Plus maybe something else they're working on.
Oh yeah, but it's gonna be. I would say, my prediction is based off of Avowed and Outer Worlds 2, right?
Yep. So you think one of those will get nominated for Game of the Year? Was the original Outer Worlds nominated for Game of the Year?
I think so. I think it at least got some kind of but
yes, it was. It was in 2019 okay. Nominated for narrative, role-playing game, performance, and Game of the Year.
But next year's a stacked year, right? So
yeah.
And I'm saying it's one of the 6. One of these 2 is one of the 6.
Unless expand it next year.
So like my only concern with that would be like Oblivion remake comes out. My Xbox releases the Oblivion remake within like a month of Avowed, because that would be something they would do. And and Oblivion remake is just excellent or something. But and then like
and then we got Oblivion remake in the Game of the Year contenders, and we had to do our same video all over again for 3 years in a row.
But that's
interesting prediction. I gotta agree with you. One of them is gonna hit, I think.
All right. Yep, it's not as bold or interesting of a prediction in most years, right? Like it's like, Obsidian's, top class, top notch developer and stuff, but they're not as, they don't have the scale and scope of a lot of the larger AAA publisher developers, right? And so, next year when you've got so many games, it's such a loaded year. You've got a new console release that's bound to, Nintendo's bound to have at least one, right? If not 2, Game of the Year nominees, and then you've got GTA 6 and you've got Monster Hunter Wilds. It's like, boom, that's 4. That's possibly 4 right there. You've got bigger games coming out from Xbox, right? You've got Doom, you've got Fable, you've got, so that's why I just make a bold claim there, prediction.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we get like, well, I'm going to talk about this in my other predictions, so I'm not going to say anything. But yeah, we'll see. All right, ready for my next one?
Yes. Yeah, go shoot.
Steam OS consoles come out and forces Xbox to push their next hardware sooner than maybe we all expected, or their OS licensing to like other Xbox consoles.
Is it a Valve?
So the reason I'm
made box?
Ooh, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think this upcoming Legion Go that has a Steam OS version shows that maybe they don't need to do that if they're already working with these companies to put Steam OS on a device.
Sure. I like following up your predictions with like, this is my take on it, right?
Yeah.
My take is that both Valve and Xbox, like you said, I think we get Steam OS handhelds, right?
Yeah,
I think that's almost like a known thing at this point.
But
I think we don't get, any kind of new Xbox next year, other than like a minor revision. Yeah. So unless it's like, here's another 2 terabyte, whatever, Series S or something, not counting just like a revision on the existing models. We don't get any kind of new hardware from them, in terms of consoles too, because we might get a controller, right? And then we don't get a new box. We don't get a set-top box from with SteamOS on it next year, but both get announced next year for 2026 devices. And 2026 gets a Valve made Steam box, and 2026 gets next gen Xbox. Or a handheld, with current gen Xbox.
Yeah.
But it's.
I'll agree with that. I thought you were going to drop also Half-Life 3 launch.
That's a good prediction, and I'll we can tie that on there. I think that would be brilliant.
You want to sell hardware and you bundle that game in, dude.
You don't have to bundle it in.
You,
Sell for $70.
no, dude, you buy a Steam OS device, we'll throw the game in. Do you know how many more people they would get on the Steam platform?
I don't know. I think you just tie the marketing to it and get the extra $70. They're
they don't care about the $70, dude. They care about the 30% cut from all the other games you're gonna buy.
When it's $70 times 20 million.
Sure, but that's a one-time sale. They want you in the ecosystem, so they get the 30%.
If you have to pay the $70 for Half-Life 3, people are going to buy the box regardless. Whether you include it or not, people are going to buy the box.
Yeah, that would be really just like selling the hardware.
Selling the box. Yeah, it's just it'd be like saying, "Oh, you should have bundled Breath of the Wild with the Switch." That wasn't going to sell any more Switches.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're right. I'll take the L on that one.
And there was literally more copies of Breath of the Wild sold at launch than there were Switches.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Might speak to the scarcity of the console too at that time.
Right. Which, again, if Valve is releasing a box, right? Like, I mean, the way they did Steam Deck, it was like they had these tiered pre-order release things and stuff like, right? So, you're certainly going to. I would imagine they would take a similar approach, right? For this, whatever the Steam box would look like.
Yeah, and I think maybe as we get into next year, we'll talk about this again, and I want to do a separate video. But I think Xbox's competition is slowly becoming Steam and not PlayStation.
I think it's quickly becoming.
As a pivot.
I think it's quickly becoming.
Quickly, yeah, you're right. I'll agree with that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they force each other's hand, which is good. We talk about competition all the time.
Sure.
I know some of us are sour on the tonal shift and the way they're doing it, but I think that's what's happening.
Where I'm a little sour is that PlayStation no longer has competition, right?
Right. And, well, we'll see. We'll see what shakes out.
Yeah.
I have another prediction. Anything for you?
Let's see. All right, I'll just go ahead and say GTA makes $2.5 billion by the end of the year.
How many copies is that? Are you counting shark cards and stuff they sell online?
You know what? That's tough because yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, it would have to launch. It would have to have GTA Online kind of in that mix.
So they would have to sell 35 million copies, roughly 36 million copies, if it was just a $70 game.
Done deal. $2.5 billion.
Crazy. That's not counting any of the online currency, the deluxe edition, the ultimate edition, the play it 3 days early edition.
That is including those, right? So
no, I just did a $70. I did $2.5 billion divided by 70.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like, I don't think it's
should you up that number?
I may be, honestly. I almost said 3 billion. I was like, no way. Because it's insane. Because like people were talking about like a few years ago, right? Like, like when GTA6 launches, it's gonna make $1 billion. And I'm like, in the first weekend is what it was the prediction or whatever. And I'm like,
yeah.
You know what? It might make more than that. But the first weekend, right? That'd be what, roughly you said it was 35 million copies to get 2.5 billion. So you're just kind of looking at what like 12 million copies or something the first weekend, but that doesn't include deluxe edition. So you're probably
easy, dude.
Easy. Yeah. Easily the biggest launch, the biggest video game launch ever, right? Like I don't think
media launch maybe.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's more of a prediction, right? Because I was like, there's like that's not even almost not even a prediction, right? Or there's no stakes in that prediction, right?
You need to start comparing it to like when Star Wars Episode 7 was coming back, or Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Like isn't that insane? You got to start comparing this game to that. Okay, I'll agree with your prediction and probably more money.
When did the Oscars start asking video game people, come to their show instead of Keeley asking actors to come to,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Xbox Game Pass finally comes to a mobile device. Doesn't have to be their own. And Xbox has one big game per month plus shadow drops.
One big game per month. What defines a big game?
It can be a double A game.
Okay.
For example, Avowed's probably a double A game, right? Outer Worlds 2 is probably a
Is it
double A
not a
game
double
ish,
A game, or
ish,
is it, like,
ish.
say, yeah. Because like to me, it's like a double A game. You look at something like It Takes Two, is kind of a double A game, right?
Yeah,
Or
Outer Worlds 1 was a double A game.
it
I'm
was a
seeing
double A game.
Avowed
Okay,
as
all
a
right.
fantasy,
If Outer
as a
Worlds is
fantasy Outer Worlds.
if Outer Worlds is considered a double A game, then I would agree with that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
one big game a month plus shadow drops. Oblivion might even be a shadow drop.
I okay. I honestly, I don't have anything to refute that.
And what about my first part? Xbox Game Pass comes to a mobile device.
Oh yeah. A mobile device.
I'm thinking more of like a Steam Deckish device, but any mobile device could be
Oh,
their own.
well, I
Could
mean,
be
it's already on the ROG Ally, right? It's already on the
yes,
Lenovo Legion Go.
yes. Excuse me. Yes, I didn't think this prediction through. You got me on the spot now.
Sorry, I was like, because like I'm like I want to say that they get it on the on an Android device, right? But it's like
That's what I'm getting at. Phones
yeah,
or their own hardware or some other partnership where
it's
it's
like they have the G
like
Cloud.
truly integrated.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're basically saying that the Xbox, the PC Xbox OS basically gets a major overhaul for mobile platforms.
Yeah, basically, which
Okay.
ties into Game Pass. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like
You
there's
think so?
that, right? There's that kind of like piece of it, and then there's also the mobile, like a cell phone or tablet, right? Like an Apple or an Android device, effectively. Right. There's those, and then there's also if you're saying it comes to either Android, Apple device, or a Steam Deck, that would be a pretty incredible claim to me. Like I said, they're already working on Android. I think that eventually we get there. It's just I think they've got a lot of courtroom time in the courtroom to make that work, to make that happen.
Right. Okay.
And I don't think that's a unrealistic prediction though.
Okay. I got two more, and then we can go to anticipations.
Okay.
PlayStation redeems itself with a big single player year with potential launches of Wolverine, Venom, and the new Santa Monica game, and maybe some old franchises being revived. So maybe you're thinking like like Killzone, those types of things. SOCOM.
Okay. I don't think we get gosh, Killzone. It's like
They already said no. Like they don't want to go back to Killzone.
Right. Like they're adding that.
But that's the one that I just
right?
called to my that's the one I called to in my head. But yeah, Wolverine, Venom, new Santa Monica game. Maybe not release.
Okay.
I think Wolverine Venom could potentially be released. Santa Monica game, I don't think so, but maybe end of year.
You're saying Wolverine or Venom, right? You're not saying both.
Yeah. One or the
those
other.
are both Insomniac, right? I mean, I know they're insane, but they're no Obsidian. Releasing two games in 1 year. But okay. Dude, I would love to see, well, Santa Monica is no, Naughty Dog is. I would love to see Santa Monica's game. That would be cool.
Yeah. Also supposedly sci-fi, I thought.
Yeah. That honestly, when Intergalactic showed up at the Game Awards, I was like, oh, this is Santa Monica's new game, and then it was like Naughty Dog, and I was like, just kidding. But yeah, no, I think that would be really cool. That'd be really interesting if Naughty Dog and Santa Monica were working on games that were similar.
Yeah.
Like it's just like that's the direction you want to take for both of them. Your two biggest studios, or two of your biggest studios.
Very silly thing to do. All in.
You're all in on this one direction. Let's hope it plays out. Yeah. Any of these PlayStation games live service?
No, that's what I said at the beginning. PlayStation redeems itself with big single player launches and announcements. Yep. And last one, Capcom announces Dino Crisis Remake.
That'd be cool. Launches on the Nintendo Switch too.
I like where your head's at. All right, let's go to anticipations and let you go first. We are for those of us still with us, we're an hour 45 in. Thank you for listening. Let's keep rolling.
All right. This is anticipation slash prediction. Unannounced 3D Nintendo platformer from basically the Mario team, the Mario Odyssey team, right? And whether or not it's a Mario game is to be seen. I kind of think it is because I think it's time. Like it's been too long since we've had Mario Odyssey, right?
Right.
But maybe it's like a Mario and Friends game, right? We've talked about 3D World, but I think a 3D Donkey Kong game, and maybe it's willful thinking. It has to be in the works, has to be coming at some point. We got a lot
You're
of
on that. You're on that hopium, bro.
I really am. I really am. I need it. I need that or a Star Fox Adventures game, and I think the 3D Donkey Kong game is more likely. So I'm just leaning into that. But developed by Rare. No,
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that anticipation. I think that's really good. If they want to blow the doors off, that's something that they should do. But it's Nintendo, so they won't.
right. I mean, yeah, and I think it's more likely we get Mario, maybe Mario and Friends, right? Like
Right.
And I think it'll blow. I think that is potentially game of the year that we're looking at, right? But there's also another game that's potential game of the year nominee too that we're talking about. So from
Several.
Nintendo,
Probably several.
right?
I would love to see Nintendo be inspired by Astrobot, which was inspired by Nintendo, to cross some of their franchises into 3D Mario. So the same way Astrobot did, and there's like a God of War level. I would love to see that. Your Mario and Friends comment made me think of that.
We get Zelda, we get Metroid, we get Kirby, we get.
How cool would that be?
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Anyway, I'll toss one too. Expedition 33. I'm anticipating this game. So not to be confused with 33 Immortals, which is also on my list later. But Clair Obscura, Expedition 33. This game looks crazy good if it can live up to the hype.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah.
No, I agree. This is one I'm really excited. It's coming to Game Pass day one, right? So, I've never played a Final Fantasy game. I've put about I don't know 8 to 10 hours, maybe 5 to 10 hours into Final Fantasy 10 on the PS Vita, but I've never really dove into a Final Fantasy game, and this is supposed to really take a lot of inspiration from that and really be like an evolution of the traditional of the legacy of Final Fantasy brought to modern times, right? Is really kind of like a lot of what this is getting compared to or whatever. That's really cool. I'm really excited for this game. In terms of anticipation, I've got 6 games listed here that I'm most excited about to play next year. This is not on that list, and there's just so many games next year. That it's like this year that game would have been easily on this list, right? For me, a day one Game Pass game that looks just incredible. Next year, and it's just like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 games in here. 4 of those 6 games are day one Game Pass games. So and then there's unannounced 3D Nintendo platformer and Metroid Prime Beyond. Sorry, I'm just giving a bunch of my anticipations here, right off the rip. But
we can jump to Metroid Prime.
So yeah. So we'll do that here. But Clair Obscura Expedition 33, and I think there's a lot of these games that don't get played by me next year. Like I said earlier, I don't play a ton of new games. I generally I just kind of burn out on like ripping through games, and then I fall back to some either arcadey games, maybe some roguelites, or maybe just some smaller indie titles. And the 6 games again here are all 4 of them are Xbox Studios and 2 of them are Nintendo, like our first party games, right? All 6 of them are first party big platform games, right? So Metroid Prime Beyond is the next one, right? And that's one of the 6 here. I think there's no way that I don't buy at least Metroid Prime and whatever the Nintendo 3D platformer comes, which I do think we get a Nintendo 3D platformer by the end of next year. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited. I played Metroid Prime for the first time last
Mhm.
year, and
And you
it
loved
really
it.
oh, I loved it. I really like. I was like, oh my goodness, might be my third favorite game on the Switch that I've played, or that I've played on the Switch.
Yeah.
Behind, or I'm sorry, fourth, because it would be behind Mario Odyssey. I just I don't want to
The
say it.
list is gone.
I don't want to say it. I can't say it. But I may or may not have lumped Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom together, um, but as one game. But uh, can we edit
Busted.
that out? But
Told you it was all the same game, not a sequel. I have a quick question for you because I have some Switch stuff on my list. What's your budget for Switch 2? Not considering like that you may buy a second console for family, whatever. I'm
right, right.
saying launch day. Let's say there's 10 games on launch day,
I,
and like
I'm
half of them are first party.
right.
What's the budget? We're gonna say the console's $500. Let's just set that arbitrary number.
Oh,
What's
$500.
Yeah, I'm just making it up, right? Like let's say you know you're gonna get the console, you're gonna spend the 500.
Well, it's funny because like in my head I was thinking $400, and then and then I was like, oh, but I was like, well, if it's I had my budget, and then I'm like $500. Like, well, maybe my budget increases.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I
yeah,
don't think I'm walking away with spending less than 750, dude.
yeah.
If they
So
come if they come out with these games that we think they're gonna have, I'm gonna get the console, probably an accessory or two, depending on like what the deal is, and 3 to 4 games potentially. Like if you're telling me there's a 3D Mario, Metroid Prime 4, maybe a Zelda drop in there, and the new Mario Kart or something.
yeah,
I don't know. That's a tough
I
no.
might have to
That's a tough
whisper.
thing to say no.
I might have to
Yeah.
whisper this answer.
Okay, out loud say 500 and then
Right,
whisper, put
right,
up fingers of
right. No,
1,000.
I'll just say what I anticipate getting. Right. So obviously the console. um, and obviously, definitely Metroid Prime. Definitely. And it also kind of depends too. Like, all right, so if Metroid Prime is the Breath of the Wild, and then we also get Mario Kart, like, and then those are the two big releases, right? Those are the two $70 releases. Um, then that makes it a little bit easier. But again, I think we get, a major, like, we get something like Cyberpunk, we get something like even a Fallout 4 or something like that at the launch. I don't know that I necessarily buy those for Nintendo day one. Part of me wants to buy one just for the spectacle of it, right?
Yeah,
But like when I'm looking at like, okay, I have so much money to spend, am I going to buy a game that that I already have on
already got have,
I've already played, whatever. So I'm gonna say, Metroid Prime, anticipating that's a cross-gen day one launch, right? Release, right? Uh, uh, I I think we get Mario Kart 9, and then maybe a month later we get some like Mario platformer or the 3D platformer. Because my thoughts are like, and maybe it's like in my head I'm just coming from the perspective of what's going to make Metroid sell, as opposed to like Nintendo's like, all right, what's going to bring us the most revenue day one, and what's going to sell the most Switches, right? I think the Switch 2 is selling itself. The Switch has sold Switch 2, right? Where it's like Breath of the Wild sold the Switch. And
right,
so
right.
there was a game that needed to sell the Switch because they were coming off the Wii U. The predecessor of the Switch 2 is possibly the best selling console of all time by the end of it, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of like, all right, we want more of this, right? So that's already going to sell itself. I could see them in an attempt to like saying like, okay, if we give Metroid the spotlight, what is it? What is its
Yeah,
capability of selling to grow this franchise, right?
yeah.
In
So
a
you're
way that
saying Metroid Prime needs the Switch more than the Switch needs the Metroid Prime.
right, exactly, and
Yep,
specifically the Switch 2, right? And if
yep,
they want to see it as a way to like, okay, how do we kick up Metroid as a franchise up
yeah.
to that 20 million, that 20 million seller, right? That 20 million copy seller, launch it
Yeah.
with as the single
I
player
like
third,
that idea. Yeah, because
as the
you're
single
gonna
player
sell
third party.
3D Mario like crazy, right? You
Yeah.
can do that a month, 2 months later. That's a
Right,
good idea.
exactly.
I
And
agree with that.
if you release it the first half of the year, it's like you've got plenty of time, right? Right. It's not like you're like, oh, we need to get this out, because it's holidays. It's not if and that's again
Yeah.
anticipation that it's not really prediction that it's not releasing in the holidays. It's going to release beforehand. Even the first half of the year is I still think that that's probably a likelihood. So,
okay, let's keep rolling.
Yep.
Give me another anticipated game.
Yeah, so I haven't talked much about this one. Another one on my list is Fable. To me, this I think this has between this and Doom have the two best shots at the game of the year. I think again, I'll tie another prediction to this. I guess I did have some predictions. Fable is the game of the year next year.
Whoa.
So that's a bold
Really?
claim, especially when Nintendo, right, is dropping something, dropping probably several games, right, with their console launch to really bolster that launch. When we get GTA 6, when we get Monster Hunter Wilds, when we get all these games, Fable is coming back in a big way.
In a big way, game of the year. Forget GTA 6, forget Nintendo, forget Mario.
We might get 3 in what one of the biggest years of gaming. We might get 3 Xbox Game of the Year nominees.
Wow, that would be a big statement for Xbox.
That would be huge. Is going to go to really just tag on to your one big game a month or one sizable notable game a month, right? Like they're just like, all right, this is what we've been building up to. We're here. Xbox has arrived, and then really just has me curious. I'll say it's an anticipation. I'm anticipating what the perception of Xbox as a brand is 12 months
at the end
now.
of the next year. Yeah, I agree. Can I give you a counterpoint? One of my anticipations, Ghost of Yotai.
Ooh.
Game of the Year nominee? No.
Maybe. So Ghost of Tsushima won Game of the Year. Is that correct?
I think so, right?
It was, but Metacritic wise, it was 83, 82.
Let's double check our.
I think it's one of the lowest scoring Metacritic wise Game of the Year winners.
It's BAFTA.
Yeah, maybe it didn't win. What year did it come out? So maybe it didn't win, but it was nominated. I thought it
didn't. It didn't win at the Keelys.
Okay.
So the past ones were Astrobot, Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring, It Takes Two, Last of Us Part 2, Sekiro. Maybe you got it mixed up with Sekiro.
Okay. Yeah, 22. PlayStation still won Game of the Year that year, and it was Last of Us Part 2. So I guess Tsushima probably wasn't going to stand a chance against something that Naughty Dog. But again, not to say that they
won several Game of the Year awards with Ghost of Tsushima, but they're mostly Japanese-based things like Famitsu and stuff like that. So, anyway, Ghost of Yotai, potential to be Game of the Year nominee. I don't know, but highly anticipating that game. First one's awesome. Some of the craziest fast travel performance, technical prowess. When you talk about optimizing a game and using the PlayStation hardware and the dedicated bridge to the SSD. The load times were literally you hit the button and you were loaded to whatever other side of the map. It was crazy. So I'd love to see them come back in a big way on that because the game was beautiful, performed well. It was just awesome. So that's one of my anticipated games.
Cool.
Jamming into the Game of the Year.
I do want to get the Tsushima on Tsushima or whatever on Steam Deck. And give that a shot. It's definitely a game that I'm really interested in. I think Yotai looks great. I think that I guess just the year that it's coming out in, and based on, I do think so it got an 8, like I said, a relatively low Metacritic score, but I think that is a game that had kind of a slow burn in terms of reception of it, and it's just the longer it's out, the just more acclaim, I guess. This was more love that it was receiving, right? It didn't get that like I said, it was a pretty low scoring game that still got nominated. And I think there's,
and you gotta remember it came out on PS4, right? So once you played it on PS5, I think that's where, as we move to that generation, try to pick up steam. And you're right, 83 Metascore from critics, but 9.2 user score, and I think that's a trend over time as well.
Yep. But yeah, that's an interesting one to see. And it's like if unless like a Santa Monica or a Insomniac game drops next year, like I think this could be the year that PlayStation misses the nominee,
Ooh,
Game of Year nominee,
ooh,
which would be a first.
that's a prediction. That's a prediction.
I had a lot more predictions than I thought. I said I didn't
Yeah.
care about it. I was like, I was less worried about that, but I'm like bringing up predictions in our success, our following categories,
Yeah.
topics.
Give
But
me another anticipation. We'll,
okay.
we'll keep moving.
Yep. So I've talked about, well, I'll bring, yeah, I talked about both these, right? The Obsidian games,
Yep.
Avowed and Outer Worlds. I'll package them together. Avowed and Outer Worlds
Also on
2.
also on my list, Avowed. Not so
Um,
much Outer Worlds, but go ahead.
oh man, yeah. So I loved Outer Worlds. I just, again, I've talked about that on this a few times about how it's just like just this snack size Fallout. And honestly, at this point in my life, right, as we've mentioned, full time working dad, right, um, and with a bunch of kids, that we have, it's just like I don't. It's one thing I think about when I think about Fable, or I think of even this Oblivion remake, which is also on my list. I I just like, do I have the time? I mean, I did put 150 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, but it's like, how often do I have the time to do that? And next year it's going to be loaded. It's like, I think Outer Worlds and Avowed for me are just going to be like these like perfect, like, okay, I can get this, boom, like I can just this 40-hour ish experience. That really hits hard, and maybe it's 60 hours for me as opposed to just
Yeah.
that really kind of gives me that dose of the 200 hours I put into Fallout 4 or Skyrim, but in a tighter package, right? And it's like I get to feel like I have the full experience, which Fallout 4 and Skyrim are two games I haven't beaten, um, where I have beaten Outer Worlds, right? And there's a better chance that I beat Avowed and Outer Worlds too, just because of that size and that scope, and then I get to feel like, again, I feel like I've gotten to consume the whole thing.
Right.
So
Yeah, it makes
probably,
sense.
yeah, probably my two most anticipated announced games for that reason. I would say like Fable and Oblivion. The only reason that those are not is because of, I think, I kind of expect Fable to be a game that, again, you can spend just hundreds of hours in. Oblivion is one that you can spend. I think Fable will probably have a more straightforward story that you could probably beat relatively quickly, but that's not going to be how I play the game.
Does Fable get delayed?
Oh, it might, which would just blow my prediction out of the water as game of the year, right?
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
does, but
So there is internally a game at Xbox. Rumors are that there's a game at Xbox that it will be pushed into 2025 or 26. Gosh. Um,
yeah.
but also there's some rumors that it's like not even an announced game, right? Because Xbox just now they're at they've hit the beat where they've just got just so many games coming through after having such a long drought. It's just like it's about to be the rainy season for them, and
Yeah.
where they're kind of going into the Nintendo direction in terms of like, oh, we gotta like really think about when we might have to sit on games because we got to think about when we're going to release them at the right time, right? Where
A
they're
good
going to do
problem
the
to have.
best. Yeah, it's a good problem to have, and it's
They
like
had the opposite problem for many years.
it allows more quality assurance, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
you're not going to spend a ton of time once the game's complete, right? If you're like, oh, you're going to release it here, now we're going to release it a year later, but it's like you can kind of keep up with like, oh, just like a skeleton crew, just maintaining that quality, and it's just only make it a better product by like, oh, we really discovered this issue with the game, or that we discovered that we can put this into the game or make this visually better,
Yeah.
make this something, just quality of life improvements and stuff that really just provide them a polished product, which is Nintendo's noted for, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. What
Yep.
about you?
Avowed, you already talked about it. I'm excited for that. I like Pillars universe. Excited to see what they do. Clown makeup going on. Silk
Oh,
Song.
yeah. I hope, man. I would love to. Well, honestly, at this point, 2026 is fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So Silk Song. Do we get a trailer? Do we get a trailer, or do we get a shadow drop, or do we get like a teaser and then it just comes out like 2 months later?
that I think we
The
get
last option.
yeah. I think we get some kind of big trailer, right, showing off the game.
Yeah.
and then it comes out pretty quick. I maybe it gets a shadow drop because it is an indie game, right? It's mostly a digital game. I'm sure it'll get a physical release.
It's got enough hype.
At least on Switch, right? Or Switch 2 rather. Maybe it's a Switch 2 launch game. That would be pretty cool, right? It's day one Game Pass, Switch 2 launch. That
you buying that day one if it's on the Switch launch?
Maybe. If it's physical, I'm buying it. If it's digital, no. I'll just buy it when I'm gonna play it.
Yeah. Nah, you're walking out of Best Buy or whatever, or Walmart, or ordering off Amazon.
If I can pull that off the shelf, probably. Just like, again. That speaks a lot to the importance of physical media, I think, as well. But
what about I'll give you another one real quick. Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, basically.
Zero anticipation for me. I've never played a Metal Gear game. Don't like stealth games, as I mentioned when we were talking about earlier. There's no appeal to the Metal Gear franchise. I have respect for Kojima and the things that he does, and obviously this isn't Kojima, but the source material is. But I really don't have, maybe just very minor anticipation, because it's like there is a small part of me that's like, I should really like consider jumping into the best Metal Gear to jump into, right? I played a little bit of Ground Zeroes on the like that prequel or the prologue for Metal Gear Solid 5, which is probably not I think it was 5, right?
Yeah. But I think 4 is seen as the best one generally.
And that's locked on the PS3, right?
I don't know. I think so, but I didn't play Metal Gear Solid 3 originally. I've only played 1 and 2, to be honest. So, I'm interested in this. You ever get a PlayStation, I'll give you my disc for the trilogy collection once I finish it.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
You got another one at all before we move over to goals?
Oh man, I mean, really, just anything that Nintendo comes out with, accessories that Nintendo comes out with.
It's funny you say this, because I put at the end of mine like Nintendo Switch 2, just like the category.
Yeah, just Nintendo Switch 2 is just like, honestly, that is my most anticipated thing in video games next year. It's like I talked about like Avowed and Outer Worlds just being like just games I'm absolutely stoked for. And there's probably, honestly, like, it's funny, I don't keep up with the indies, and I do. I was gonna say, in terms of like prior to release, so much as like I just like kind of go discover indies as they come out, and but like I don't get in advance, and I don't like think about, other than something like a Silk Song occasionally, or like if a Celeste 2 or something was announced, or something by Acid Nerve was announced, like I would be kind of like on top of that, just aching for that. But like I'm constantly discovering new indies by new developers or different developers than I've played before. So it's like kind of like there's not a whole lot of anticipation necessarily for those until the games I see more of the games close to
discoverability, right?
Yeah. But
cool.
so Nintendo the Switch 2 is the most anticipated thing in video games for me next year. And I'm looking forward to Mario Kart 9. I'm hoping there's an adventure mode, right? That like almost like a Diddy Kong style. But and I think that's the only way to evolve Mario Kart at this point. Like, what do you do beyond Mario Kart 8 that has 48 courses or 96 courses? 96 courses, right?
Yeah.
And you have all the characters, you have all, like, in terms of what the game is as it exists, there's not really much more you can do.
Remake
you can't
Double
do more
Dash.
of the same. You have to branch out, I think, for Mario Kart 9 to stand out. And I think we're in a similar case for Smash Brothers as well, which is wild, because they had a pretty cool campaign, or single player story, if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, for the first time in a long time, right? In Smash on the Switch. And the last time I remember playing a really fun single player story mode was on Melee, which is a very different story mode, right? It had like a side scroller beat 'em up almost to it, game mode to it. But I would be really curious to see. I'm really curious to see what Sakurai ends up doing with Smash, because we know it's Sakurai. And then really curious to see what the Mario Kart team does to really give us something beyond what Mario Kart 8 does. It's the definitive Mario Kart experience. We've got the definitive Smash experience, and it's just like, what do you do beyond the definitive experiences for these games? Beyond evolving? Yeah. And
Um,
of the Pro controller, because the Switch Pro controller is the most comfortable controller I've ever held. So I'm
it
really
is.
excited to see what kind of Pro controller they come with, and there's a lot of
And that
room.
battery life, yo. It's
Oh,
like
it's so good. It's
charge me for
so
an
good.
hour and you get 120 hours.
I was gonna say, as a PlayStation owner, I'm sure you really feel that battery life,
Yes.
right? Like you get 40
Yeah.
hours out of the Pro controller, like 68 hours out of the Joy-Con, right?
Yeah.
Something insane like that. And yeah. So the battery life, the Joy-Con are rumored to have Hall effect joysticks. Do you release the Joy-Con with Hall effect joysticks and not the Pro controller? Because I feel like the Pro controller then
Oof.
has to have Hall effect sticks. Really, so I'm pretty excited. I'm just it doesn't look like we're getting analog triggers again, and that's a little disappointing. But I'm guessing that's also partially because I was thinking about this. Why don't we have analog triggers? And I'm like, is it because of the single Joy-Con play? Like, how would you put an analog trigger on a
Yeah.
single Joy-Con? I'm like, if that's it, come on, Nintendo. But
Yeah.
because it's like there's plenty of experiences you can have with that you require at least two Joy-Con. But anyway,
Right.
so how about you?
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, but I'm all wrapped up on that, I think. I had Oblivion remake in there because once that rumor's come out, I'm excited for that. I would rather see Morrowind just because I've only partially played that,
yeah.
where I've played more of Oblivion. But yeah, I'm excited about that either way. I'm ready to go on to goals if you're ready.
Okay, one more question I got. So, um, there's a few games that, like, at least at the top of my head, that are pretty huge releases next year that I'm curious about your anticipation for. Monster Hunter Wilds, Doom: The Dark Ages, and Grand Theft Auto 6 are games that we didn't really talk too much about. Um, and out of those, are you excited about any of them? What's your most excited one?
Oh, Doom: The Dark Ages. I think you said Dune at first, like the
Yeah,
sci-fi property.
starring Timothy Chalamet
Yeah.
as Doom guy, as Dune
Uh,
guy.
I love that you named him that. It's Chalamet.
Whatever.
I hope he's a
Sorry.
listener of our.
Gosh
I
dang
hope
it.
he's a listener and he unsubs.
Oh man. Yeah.
If I had to rank those, they're in that order probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I would Doom's definitely the one that's most exciting for me. So I would just swap Doom and Monster Hunter and be Doom and then
Yeah.
Monster Hunter and then GTA. So do you have much hype for GTA at all?
Yes, because I want to see what they do. They always push the limit, right? Like,
Yeah.
dude, they had that thing running on the Xbox 360. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like they're incredible and they're gonna push the limit and they probably deserve every dollar that they make, right? Like I know that a lot of that's from like the online and the shark card bull crap. But in terms of the actual game, like
Right.
they
The
really
value they bring
push
to
the
the
boundaries.
industry. Yeah, with
Yeah, yeah.
specifically,
So
like with Red Dead and with GTA.
yeah.
It's just
So
like,
I'm here for it. I prefer Red Dead's theme over Grand Theft Auto. It's not
yeah,
that I
same.
don't like playing a thug and robbing people or riding around or doing whatever is in the story at the time. Um, and I played the last several games, but I never played them to like, oh, I gotta like people that really like it. They play it like all the time. They're doing
Right.
all the little side quest things. That's just not me. Like
Same.
I'll do that in like Fallout and stuff, but I'll pick up Theft Auto and play it. It's kind of like I don't know, like maybe you're not a huge Marvel guy, but like how do you not go check out Infinity War? You know what I mean? Like
Right,
that
right.
type of thing. I don't know. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, I will be paying attention to it because of what it is, right, and what they do for the industry. Like I said, like for GTA, the only GTA I've ever really played is GTA 4, and I only ever played it as an arcade experience, right? I never really pursued
Mm.
any of the missions. It was just like, oh, I'm gonna go run around, see how many stars I
Sandbox.
can get, and yeah, and
Yeah.
just do that kind of stuff. And like, I don't know, maybe if I did dive into one, I would enjoy it a little bit more. But like I said, the Red Dead setting to me is a little more appealing. And so if I play a Rockstar game next year, it's probably going to be Red Dead 2.
Counterpoint. The last time a Grand Theft Auto game came out, I didn't have kids. So it's going to be very hard to find the time
You
to
weren't
sync
married.
a lot of this. Yeah. I wasn't even married.
You had full-time jobs. Maybe we
Crazy,
did.
crazy. Yeah, I did have a full-time job. It was
Yeah,
early
so
on.
maybe we did. Yeah.
Um,
I didn't.
but that changes the game, dude. Because like you're talking about like sexual content, murdering people, robbing people.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that limits the amount of time that I can play this game, and it is what is sure to be a massive game.
Right.
So the best place for me to play this might be on like a Steam Deck.
Switch 2.
But yeah, Switch
Full
2.
circle.
Yeah, literally a handheld where I can seclude myself and
Right.
play it at different opportune times.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
that totally changes my answer.
Take
Well, it
notes,
doesn't change the
Xbox.
ranking, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's fair.
Okay.
Doom's the most exciting one, but I haven't played Eternal. I've mostly I've gotten pretty close to beating Doom 2016,
Okay.
but I really liked what I played at Doom 2016, but I sold my Xbox One
Mm.
before beating it, and got a PS4. But all right. Yeah. So you said goals, right? As our next topic.
Yeah,
All
gaming
right.
goals. I've only got a couple as we round out the
Okay.
episode.
All right. So I'll
Um,
start with if since I don't know if I have more than that, but if you only have a couple, I'll go ahead and start if that
yep.
works. So I've got a list of games here that I put down that I want to play more of next year.
Mhm.
That I've started, I've made progress in, and like at the top of the list here is Octopath Traveler 2. I've got about 15 to 20 somewhere hours in there, and it's a pretty, again, another longer game, but it's a great game. I really would just love an Xbox handheld for that, because that's where I'm playing it, is on Game Pass. But that JRPGs, grindy games are just so good for handhelds. And it's definitely a grindy game. It's a satisfying grind. I enjoy the combat. I enjoy the progression. It's beautiful to look at, especially for my, the appeal to me in terms of visuals. It's got that great pixel art, but it's that HD 2D style, and it just that really defined, the franchise that defined that style, right?
Right.
And I got more indie. I got more. So like Moonlighter is a game that I
To
brought
be
up
clear,
earlier.
that's Indiana Jones. Well, we
Yeah,
were talking about
Indiana
indie
Jones.
games as
Indiana
well. So
Jones. Yeah,
Indiana
the
Jones.
rest of these are indies pretty much, but this is Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Uh, but so Loop Heroes, I'll call it real quick too, that I started. It was on Game Pass earlier this year, and I played a little bit of it, and I was like, oh man, it's almost like this. It's got a little bit of like Vampire Survivors passive abilities to it with tower defense,
Mhm.
but it's like a roguelite, and the paths are generated, I believe, and then you've got a little bit like, it's kind of got that Moonlighter, Dave the Diver, like where it's like you kind of got two parts of the game, right? You kind of
Yep.
go back, and you're like the stuff you do in the gameplay loop, quite literally the loop on Loop Hero, or
Yep.
you're taking out the baddies and stuff, and then you take the loot and the collectibles or the money and stuff you earn from that, and go back and you build up your little like hub and everything like that, and do things that help you build up your skills for the game. Just a really cool like dichotomy.
Look
I
at
think
you
that's
becoming a roguelike fan.
yeah, there are a few that stand out to me, and that was definitely one of them. Moonlighter is another one that I just mentioned, right?
Mhm.
And then UFO 50. I think UFO 50 is like, that's going to be a game that I just chip away at like all the time, right? Like especially like I just go in spurts with my Steam Deck where I just get addicted to a game on my Steam Deck, and I think that's going to be
Yeah.
one of the games that happens for me. I mentioned Slow Crashers earlier, and I really want to just
Mhm.
see what that game has to offer. And then back to calling back to the Death's Door. If you look at I'm on the Death's Door subreddit, or if you look at like Death's Door comparisons, games that are like, oh, I love Death's Door, what should I play next? Tunic is always the game that's mentioned. I started it right after beating Death's Door. And I think that was a little bit of a mistake, because I went into it and I was like, all right, I'm just going to be Death's Door, but as a fox dressed as Link, right? And it's not exactly Death's Door. There's certainly a ton of overlap, right? But it's a little more puzzly, a little more I don't know if I think a little more puzzly. It's just different, right? It's still not, it's not just Death's Door, but a little bit different. Like, it is its own game. It certainly is probably the closest game to overlap. I also picked up Hyper Light Drifter, which also looks like it has a lot of
Mm.
similarities. And that's another one in there. But yeah, Tunic has the potential to be, like my biggest game on this list. Because of how much I love Death's Door, right? My game of the
Right.
year 2024, the year that Death's Door didn't come out. But yeah. So I'll go ahead and pass over to you for a little bit. I still have more on my list, but I'll go ahead and move over to you for one of some of your goals.
Okay, cool. I took this question completely differently. So you
I
listed out games that you want to play,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I did it. So my first thing is play games on easier difficulty to lessen time spent
Oh,
on
okay,
each
okay.
game. So this is kind of like, what do I want to change about my gaming habits, or what do I want to accomplish? Of course, I want to play a lot of these cool games. Playing Metaphor and hitting that wall where I had to dig in like another 20 hours on top of an already long game, kind of it wore me down a little bit. And like literally, I put down the difficulty, right, and
Yep.
it was freeing in a way. This is like therapy session. I'll lay on the couch while I talk to you, to be like, hey, it's okay to like drop the difficulty and just rip through some stuff. In the same way, my wife and I were talking in the same way that some people just watch the YouTube video. I literally told him like, if this gets any more crazy, like I'm just gonna watch the YouTube video of the.
Right.
I was like at that point, like I love this game, but I'm not gonna sit here and grind. Like I don't have the time. I have other games I want to play. I'm thinking next year's gonna be this big year. I've already got a big backlog. And so my goal next year is like to be okay with lowering the difficulty. So in honor of that, today when I picked back up on Indiana Jones, I dropped it from very hard to normal. So I dropped it down 2 difficulty levels. I know, it's tough.
I'm so proud.
I did leave the puzzle difficulty on the higher one, but yeah, I dropped the difficulty down. Yeah, so that's a goal. That's a goal for me because there's just look. I loved Tears of the Kingdom. Put over 200 hours into Tears of the Kingdom. Put over 200 hours into Baldur's Gate 3. But those are like, to me, like once in a generation, once in a lifetime games.
Which happened to come out in the same year.
Yeah, but I cannot be doing 90, 100-hour plus games multiple times. Yeah, it's hard. Yep. It's really hard. Yep. So I'm trying to be more okay with ripping through them.
I love to hear you say that. Like, it's just like, cause you've given me a little bit of a hard time over the years and stuff. And it's just like to kind of see you come over. I feel like this is coming over to the light side. You're in the dark side. It's like the anti Darth Vader, the anti Palpatine and Anakin. But that's really cool to hear. It's just like, okay, I just kind of want to be able to just like appreciate the experience that is here in a more a functional time span or whatever, right? Like it's just like, okay, like I liked getting good at hard games and stuff. There was like a sense of fulfillment. It's just like there's still the capacity for satisfaction in that, but it's just like you said, at this time of our lives, right, where it's just like there's just more things that I'm going to spend my time on, and it's like I want to experience what the game has to offer more than just knowing that I can get good. To an extent, right? That's kind of what it is, and it's just like, I like challenging games, but it's that's really cool to hear. And you know what? I'll kind of in the same spirit of that. Extend maybe my goal is it's going to be really hard for me to do this with open world games, I would say, but I'll say with like semi-open world games and more linear games, because even in linear games I try to explore every nook and cranny of a video game. Mm-hmm. So like maybe I'll say it with more Game Pass games as well, because I don't have any investment in it, so I don't feel like I need to get a bang for my buck. I'll try to, instead of dropping the difficulty, I'll drop the need to explore every inch of a game, right, to feel like I have that full experience. Because it's I would say that would be the comparable time extension for me in a game that eventually can cause games to drag on for me that maybe didn't necessarily need to if I would have just played them a little more focused, right, a little more focused on
self-inflicted pain, right, for both
right
of us.
Yep, exactly. And that also may be what happened to me in Sea of Stars, near the end, where it's just like, oh, okay, like, all right, like, and I do find myself tiring at the end of that. I was a little more linear with my approach, just in the same way with Metaphor, right? You were a little more, you just ease the difficulty. You're like, all right, at this point, I want to see, I'm invested in the game. I want to see the end, right? But I'm ready to be done as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So in honor of that, I'm also going to try and just go beat the end boss of Black Myth Wukong and not do the super secret extra hard boss. I've tried it. I failed. I'll accept my failure. I did think you and I might have had a moment here where we crossed paths on the road where I went easier, and I was hoping you were going to like Elden Ring and you were going to go into hard games.
Right. No, I become the
well, you did it. You bounced back.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm still not ruling Elden Ring out. And did I put? I didn't put it on this list. But
It's literally rolled out.
it's literally rolled out. But there is a part of me that just still wants to beat that first boss. What is it? The first boss. Margot. I don't know.
That sounds right.
But something like that, right? I still want to beat that first boss just to, as we talked in the Discord, to see if like, if I beat the boss and I'm like, heck yeah, let's go, then I'll know that like this game might be for me, right? Or is there's a good chance this game is for me. If I beat the boss and I'm like, oh my gosh, finally I can, I'll know it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on to continued goals here. I'll move forward. So I've got Dungeons of Hinterberg is another one that I want to jump back into. I really like the aesthetic of it. I really liked what I was kind of playing. It just had this light, fluffy mood or tone to it or whatever, and it's just kind of like just a feel good game. Along with, just kind of some silly enemies. It kind of felt like a Persona game meets like I don't know if it's roguelike or not. I don't know if the dungeons are roguelike in it, but it's kind of got these like these dungeons that you're going through, and it's a little more action. It is action combat as opposed to turn-based combat. It's is that arena style combat like the Devil May Cry,
yeah,
I Rush, right, where you're in a circle. I think it's that.
It reminded me more of High Five Rush combat.
Yeah.
Not with a rhythm, but everything else about it.
Right. Yeah. And it's been summer since I've played it. So it's just like, there's some things that I'm misremembering about it, but
it is summer here.
Yeah. Right. It's been several months since I've played, but no, there was a lot there that I liked. And then Persona 3 is a game that I just had to mention, because I didn't want to, I feel like, part of Funkstar's soul would have been just lost or died a little bit if I didn't at least mention Persona 3 Reload, because he was really excited for me to dive into that one. I did put Core Keeper in here. I'm like, I think I should get
I love Core Keeper.
I think there's probably something there for me. It didn't grab me right away. Just like I see something that resembles Minecraft, and like I almost get just like off put by right away. But I played Minecraft recently a little bit with my son, who's just like, Dad, I want to play Minecraft. Right? He's in that elementary school age where it's like every kid wants to play Minecraft, right? And I'm like, he was playing with his cousins. I was like, all right, I should play games with you that you want to play, right? Not just constantly games that I want to play on. I want you to experience. So I jumped in. I was like, you know what? I can have fun with this type of experience, especially in that way. So it's like it's a game I might play with him. Patrick's Parabox is a really, 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 really cool puzzle game. It's purely a puzzle game. There's not really much. There's in sense of the story. It's all about the paradox, of the puzzles and stuff, like the mechanic of the puzzles, basically the story. Really cool. It's got the type of thinkiness that you get in Portal games, right? And it's just like a 2D puzzle game, but it's really, really good. I said I've been playing Messenger, and that one I want to finish up and just close close that loop. That's Sea of Stars is also by Sabotage, right? So I just kind of want to finish up those two Sabotage games. And then I mentioned Hyper Light Drifters also on my list, which is another like Death's Door like that has a pretty cool setting, color palette, and art style to me. So do you have something else, anything else to add on or for yours?
Yeah. I think you'll enjoy Hyper Light Drifter. So mine kind of goes in. My next one goes in with yours. Is spend more time on the Switch with the kids. So I did play several Switch games, like we played Pikmin and stuff, but I want to get more into like Super Mario 3D World and Super Mario Party. The kids are getting better at games. My son's 3 and my daughter's about to turn 5. Shortly after, my son will turn 4. So, and they're getting fairly advanced, I think, for how old they are and like what controls they can do and like the concepts that they're grasping. So I just want to your point, like, let's play. You guys don't have to watch me play Indiana Jones, or you don't have to watch me play, whatever it is. We can go. Let's go play Mario together. Let's go play whatever it is together. And I think the Switch is a good platform for that. Yep. And when the Switch 2 comes out, I'm keen to see if what the cross platformness of that is. Like, okay, now I'll go buy a Switch 2, and now we have three switches that we can play Mario Kart on all at the same time,
Right.
that type of thing. So that's why I'm really looking for. That's a goal for me, is like spend some of that quality gaming time that I love with my kids in new ways.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'll second that. I brought these up earlier, these devices, the
Yeah.
Miu Minis, I've been thinking about, and I kind of saw like some recommendations online in terms of getting younger kids into some of the retro games and stuff. I just mentioned that I want to play the games that my kids want to play with them, but also, there is still this like I just want them to like kind of see where like my background in gaming is, and see if they appreciate some of that stuff. See what somebody that has seen some of these games, that exist now. And see if they still enjoy, right? And like my son's been enjoying, he's started Pokemon Yellow, right? And he's really loving that. He can't even read, but he's just like loving the battling and stuff like that, right? He's like, I got a
Yeah.
Pikachu's following me around. It's so cool. And it's funny because I talk about how like Pokemon Yellow is my Gen 1 game that I don't really care for as much. I think it's all about red and blue for me. I'm really red. But
Yeah.
I thought with the Pikachu following him, I feel like the story is a little bit lighter, a little bit more straightforward in Pokemon Yellow, and it's a little more tied to like something that he can relate to in terms of what he's seen with the anime.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so he's really enjoying that. And he's played, he's been playing a little bit of Let's Go Eevee as well, which is the
Yeah.
remake on the Switch. And but I've been kind of looking at I'm sorry I started saying this, but like the way to almost having like maybe a game of the week, or my goal is I said I had 19 games that I gave them, it's just a few from each of the systems I put on there, but like adding a game every couple of weeks or something, so it's like they get like a new game, a new release, right? And as opposed to just
Mhm.
having 10,000 games right off the rip, it's like, all right, like
Yeah.
let me dig
Drip
through the
feed it.
mess and see what I find. It's like they have something excited. I'm taking a note out of Nintendo Music's book, right? Where it's just like every Monday there's a new drop. Like we'll release a little bit of the content that'll keep you occupied for the week. And then each week we're just going to add something new for you to come and check out. Right. And that's kind of like, I think I like that idea. Like I said, I mentioned my son specifically because he's the one that's most into it right now. My daughter loves playing games and stuff, but she's not as advanced at some of the stuff as your son that's in a similar age, right? So,
He's
so
crazy, dude.
yeah, it's the him playing Astrobot, just nutty. I was like, there's no way. I mean, I don't even know if my son who's twice his age is at that level now. He's probably about that now, but he definitely wasn't,
Yeah.
when he was that age. So, um, but yeah, no, that's a really good one. And I have some of the games I have on here are some of the games that he got for Christmas that I kind of want to play, whether it's back and forth with him or just with them, right? Like Mario versus Donkey Kong, which is also a 2-player game, and the Mario it can be a 2-player game. It's a 1 to 2-player game, I think. And he was playing with his cousin. But then Mario
Mhm.
Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which is not co-op. The first one was, so it's a little bit disappointing. I almost wanted to get the
Mm.
first one so we could play co-op.
I
Um,
remember that being a big sticking point when it came out.
Yeah. And so like I was it was disappointing when that didn't have the co-op, because I was like, this is now, at that point I was like, I could play with this with my son here, and he likes,
Yeah.
one thing I think he loves Mario versus Donkey Kong is it's not this action-based combat that he's like got to worry about, right? There's there's bad guys or whatever, there's a little bit, but it's very like it's much more puzzle focused, right? And I think turn-based game like the Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, where it's like he doesn't have to react as quickly, right? And
Yeah.
he gets pretty frustrated a lot of times, like
Yeah.
with it's been a while since we've played like Zelda, like Link's Awakening or whatever. He'd be like, oh dad, I want to play, and he'd just wander around in the towns. And then the second he would step outside of the boundaries of town where bad guys start showing up, he's like, all right, dad, your turn. And
Yeah.
because he
To
didn't
do
want
the
to do any
fighting.
of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, he'll do a little bit of it, but he probably gets that from me, right? Like I've talked about in Elden Ring and Indiana Jones. Some of the things I don't like about those games is like it's just constant hostility in those environments.
Yeah.
And so he's probably getting a similar thing, right? And some of his favorite games have been a short hike, a little kitty, big city. These games that just aren't as hostile. They're a little more light and fun. He liked unpacking, it's just like all these games,
Mhm.
so, and then Mario versus Donkey Kong, like I said, I think is just right up his alley, which makes a lot of sense because he regularly gets called my mini me by my family.
I
And
was gonna say Mini Evan. Yep.
yeah,
That's cool though.
yep.
It's
And then
interesting.
but
Go ahead.
yeah, as I say, and then the last couple games, I only have 2 more games left on this list that I came up with, so I just go ahead and mention them. I started Dave the Diver.
Yeah.
And it's cool, man. So I haven't played a ton of it, but I did get started. I went through basically the tutorial, got moving, and it's kind of fun. The harpoon mechanic and stuff is a little bit of adjusting to, but
Yeah.
I think
How you
I'm
gotta
gonna have
aim
fun
it.
with it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I'm curious to see what you think of it. I've got strong opinions on it. It's like a love-hate relationship, but
okay,
we'll
all
see.
right, yeah,
We'll
yeah.
see how you get along.
I say we'll have to see how I feel about it, because and then that's also got the that thing I was talking about with like Moonlighter and with Loop
Mhm.
Hero and right where it's like you've got the storefront and then you've also got the active like almost combat or whatever where you're going and doing the thing. But Prince of Persia, and then I do have Star Ocean Second Story R, so I guess I had 3 games. But yeah, Prince of Persia is supposed to be like an excellent game that came out this year. Metroidvania. We talked again about it, and I'm really looking forward to diving into that one. It looks really good. And Star Ocean Second Story R, I started. I played a few hours into it, and it's like it's one I haven't switched in physical format, and I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm hoping it's just kind of got a satisfying grind to it. But yeah, do you have any other
Nice.
goals here?
Yeah, I got two more. So one was play all Game of the Year contenders before year's end. So there's a stipulation on that because it's a stacked year. So when I say Game of the Year contenders, I mean the nominees, because it was a cool feeling this year when we did our show to be able to say like, hey, I played all these, with the exception of Erdtree DLC. That's hey, I played all these and I have like a pretty well formulated opinion on all of these games. So that was a cool feeling. One that like, hey, the games I liked were also really good, but also at the same time, um, I can be pretty informed on these and have a cool discussion with you and the listeners and stuff. So that's one of my
Yeah.
goals is like, let's watch what's trending really well and try and hop on those. And hopefully most of them are free on Game Pass.
I was
And then
say
my last,
if
yeah,
this year is all Game Pass and Nintendo games, I might be actually be a part of that conversation with you this year.
hey, okay,
But it was
I
really
like it.
cool. I will say it was really cool with you being able to do that this year. I was a little jealous of it because I'm like I'm looking at the nominees and it's like you played literally every game that was nominated. You just didn't
Yeah,
play the one DLC that was nominated for Game of the Year. But I only played one. Right, I played Balatro. That was it. Partially because like half the games were PS4, PS5, PlayStation exclusives, but with Black Myth and Final Fantasy and Astrobot. So, yeah, no, that was really cool. Like I said, I was really, a little jealous, but maybe next year.
yeah, yeah. My last goal is to dive back into Godot, game dev engine, and work on an indie game. So I've done like little game jams and stuff in the past. I'm like really passionate about it, and it's just about like finding the time to do that, and also being willing to not play a game to try and make a game,
Mm,
no matter how small it is. So that's a challenge for me. Is like I really am like a creative person. I want to sit down and make it, but I also want to go play the new
right.
Mario. I want to go play the new Baldur's Gate, whatever it is. So that's tough. And I'm surprised like how people do that in real life, like
Yeah.
full-time game
They
developers,
just
because
shut
they
it
talk
down,
about all
man.
these games they play, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I'm sure they just shut it down, right? Instead of being a part of the gaming subreddit, part of the Xbox subreddit, part of the gaming leaks and rumors, like all these subreddits that we follow, like they just shut down the exposure to all of like the news and stuff, and they're just like they're probably focused
Yeah.
within their own subs that just help them further what they're doing. Yeah, I've thought about that a lot too, and it's always like I've got a constant note for board game development and video game development, two separate notes of like ideas and stuff that I have. I'm like, all right, one of these days I feel like I'm going to jump into this and do this. And
Yeah.
it's like, but yeah, it's like, it's such a, like, you've just got to be like, all right, I'm going to do this. And like I said, it's probably, it's like, all right, I'm going to just give myself a weekend. Like the game jams are probably so valuable. And that's probably why they're so popular, is just like, I can do something in a weekend or do something in, this short amount of time, start to finish, and at least it's a completed product, whether it's, whether how, it doesn't matter how good or bad it is, or I mean, you care about that, right? But it's like at least I have a finish line, and it's what, even no matter how small, it gives you that sense of I've done something, and probably a little bit of
Right.
dopamine hit, a little bit of that satisfaction of like completing something that helps you continue forward, and you can continue to bring those game jams forward into future projects, right? So,
Right. Right. So I think that's it for today's episode. Unless you got anything else, we'll start to close out. This was episode 21. We recapped our personal favorites of the year. We looked ahead to the end of the year. We're definitely missing Curtis out there, buddy. Yo, dude.
Oh, what's up? Did I miss it?
Hey, man.
He's here. He's arrived.
He is alive. Guy needs a haircut.
Yeah.
In about 20 minutes, y'all.
Same, dude. I need my own haircut. Not in 20 minutes,
What?
but
we were going to do a welfare check on you, or a wellness check.
Welfare check.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, he looks poor right now. I don't know, man.
maybe next time I'll be around for cutting this episode less than 2.5 hours from Evan tangents at the very least.
You might talk about UFO 50. You know that screenshot I sent in our chat?
Oh my god.
I knew you would have liked that.
We're gonna talk about that in the chat. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, I'll have more to say about it. I'm sure.
I'm sure as well. Well,
Curtis, can you tell us your best game of 2024?
Best game 2024. Pokemon TCG Pocket.
Oh, I thought about bringing that up. It's what a great mobile experience, right?
Exactly. I get to rip virtual packs. I don't have to throw trash away afterwards. Don't have to sleeve cards. It's amazing.
Yeah, the only thing it's really missing is the smell. If they can somehow send the smell of a fresh Pokemon card through my
Scratch and sniff,
my
dude.
phone
That's a
speaker.
good idea.
Yeah.
I'd pay gold for that.
Oh man, what a great interruption to end the episode. To end the year.
Unbelievable. Your timing's impeccable. It would have been nice if you were on like 2.5 hours ago, but that's fine.
Win some, you lose some.
Yeah, to keep something valuable, you got to not give it out all the time, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Like I said in the Discord, man, if I was in the Discord all the time, like it's not like Chris Hemsworth showing up to, restaurant all the time. If he did, people would be like, oh, it's just Chris Hemsworth again. But when he does show up, people are like, Chris Hemsworth. Same thing here. You get it.
Shit, the scarcity.
I can see the similarities, Curtis and Chris Hemsworth. Yes.
Yeah.
See the beard?
Oh yeah.
See the abs, but we're trying to keep this, PG.
Right. Sure. But just bringing down the hammer here.
Exactly. Well, I'm off to do my other podcast, gentlemen. Have a lovely year. And
oh man. Oh,
good to see you guys. I'm glad you're still breathing.
Yeah.
And,
Brutal.
I'll make sure to watch this episode at least the last 2.5 minutes worth, because that's where the magic is.
Oh my god! All right, get this guy out of here. Lock the door next time. Keep the riffraff out. See you, buddy.
All right, there he is. The Discord's been asking for him. We got a sneak peek. Maybe we'll get more of them next year.
How do we know? How do we know it's not AI? I don't know if he's still alive.
We don't. Did you see it? Like, I don't know, those books in the background? It looked like it said like Dun Shins and Dragoons or something. I don't.
Yeah. And he's like oddly looking like Chris Hemsworth, like more to like Chris Hemsworth in it. Anyway, that is episode 21. Jump in the comments. Let us know what you thought about this year. What's the coolest new game you played? What is your personal game of the year this year? Even if it's not from this year, maybe it's from 1990. Who cares? Let us know. And always, please hop in the Discord. We love having discussion with listeners there every day. Anything else, Evan?
Yeah, comment, like, subscribe, and then Happy New Year, right? Because the next time we publish an episode, it will be 2025.
Happy New Year.
The year of too many games.
The year of too many games. Yeah, be safe out there this new year. Take your Switch and Steam Deck with you, and enjoy games. Keep playing, and let us know how it goes. We'll see you later.
Friends together, ready, set, go. Games on channel.